Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Military Affairs and Ways and Means. We'll hear from the Department of Corrections, who will present their biennium budget requests. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair De La Cruz, Vice Chair Elefante, and members of the committee. As you know, I'm Tommy Johnson, the Director of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So I'd like to first introduce some of my team that's here, my leadership team. We have our Deputy Director for Administration, Melanie Martin. Our Deputy Director for Correctional Institutions, Pamela Sturts, but she's in the office. She just returned back from Arizona yesterday. We have our Deputy Director for Rehabilitation Services and Programs, Sana Munoz. We have the Executive Director for CVCC, Pamela Ferguson-Bray. And from the Hawaii Polling Authority, we have the Administrator, Corey Ranke here, as well as representatives from DAGS as the expended agency on some of our projects. I have 6 pages of testimony. With the committee's permission, I would just like to summarize.
Yeah.
Then we can get into the tables.
The committee would encourage.
Okay. So real quick, we have 4 short-term goals, as you can see on page 1: reduce overcrowding, improve the living and working conditions, the living conditions for those in our custody and care, and our staff working in the facilities, fill our vacancies, and we have had good strides in filling our correctional officer vacancies, but we still have some work to do. Expand our mental health services statewide, and update our correctional master plan. As you know, the last update was in 2003. Our long-term goals are to relocate the Kauai Community Correctional Facility. We have some funding for that. Plan and build a new jail in West Oahu and Kona. Over 30% of the folks in our Hilo jail are from the Kona side. Plan to relocate the Maui Community Correctional Center, and plan to relocate the Hawaii Community Correctional Center, and also to try to bring back the 1,000+ inmates we have on the mainland. Excuse me, not 1,000. I think I have it here. We have 938 on the mainland now. That's due to a temporary surge. We closed down 2 housing units at Halava to do major repairs to the electrical. And so 240 of that 938 will be coming back once we get the repairs done in the 2 modules at Halava Correctional Facility. We still struggle with staffing shortages, but we've been able to reduce through an aggressive multi-pronged approach on our recruitment. We've been able to reduce our ACO vacancy rate from 30.4% to 24%. That includes emergency hires. We will continue that. We increased our recruitment efforts in a number of ways, but basically in 2023, we put 56 officers on the floor with 3 classes, ACO recruit classes. We held 6 classes in 2024, and we put 136 on the floor. And we plan to hold 6 classes in 2025, 26, and on, to try to get ahead of the silver tsunami of the retirements and the normal attrition rate. As you know, our jails are severely overcrowded, in particular OCCC and HCCC. We recently opened a 48-bed unit at HCCC, which will relieve some of the overcrowding, but not enough. And we recently completed major projects at the Oahu Community Correctional Center. With respect to population management, I only control about 5% of the population in our custody and care. We have to take everybody sent to us. So regardless of our census, if the court sentenced someone to us, HPA returns somebody to custody, or the court to issue a bench warrant and places a probation violator in custody, we have to take them. That's why our jails are overcrowded. That, in the fact that we have our sentence misdemeanors and pretrial are spending an inordinate amount of time, particularly the pretrial population, incarcerated without being released. 7 out of the 10 requests we submit to the courts for supervised release are denied. So we're trying to ramp up our electronic monitoring, and hopefully the courts will approve some of those for release. But that's an indication that 87% of our pretrial population and sentence misdemeanor population, the pretrial and misdemeanor population here in the state is 87% when you compare it to our sentence felon population. So what that tells us is we have people in our custody who probably should be on supervised release in the community who had better be served, and we're spending approximately $307 a day to keep people in custody who may have a $50 bail. We also have people in our custody who clearly have mental health issues, who, if it weren't for their mental health illness, probably would not be involved in the criminal justice system. And the jails are the worst place for these folks because it's the least effective, most costly. There needs to be some type of intermediate place for them to be in the community where they can receive the services, housing, and the help they need instead of coming to jail, which again is $307 a day. With respect to our non-general funds, there's a link on page 5 where you can go and see that. Our budget requests listed there. We had some other requests. We would like to highlight that the biggest request in our budget is the $30 million to complete the planning and design and the bridging documents, RFP, RFQ, and the bridging documents for the new OCCC project. I am aware that the Oversight Commission sent a letter to the legislators and the governor to halt the planning and design, but I believe we can do both. We can improve the system and continue with the planning and design. The OCCC is old and obsolete. It's manpower intensive. To give you an example, there's 413 correctional officer positions there. If we build a new, more modern facility, we can not only meet the needs of the offenders we have today, but we can probably do that for about less than 300 corrections officers and build a facility that can hold about 1,300. Right now, OCCC design capacity is 628. We routinely have over 900 folks there. Today, as of today, we have 947 people at OCCC with a design capacity of 628. So we're severely overcrowded, and it has been that way for decades. With that said, that is a summarize of our testimony. We can get into the budget tables if you like.
Okay, we can just quickly go over table 6.
Table 6, okay. I went too far. Hold on, sorry. Okay, so these are our asks. I can go right down the list.
Yes.
Okay, so the $4 million ask is to add to our reentry services. You'll see the commission's report on the state of reentry in Hawaii. It's a damning report, and it should be. We do have challenges. There are a lot of things we're unable to do because we simply don't have the funding to do the wraparound reentry services. This $4 million we're asking for in the budget allows us to do some of those reentry services, to include providing housing when they first get out for a small period of time, to provide case management services in the community, so the warm handoff and linkage, to provide other services in the community that can better serve the needs of the person instead of being incarcerated. That, we think, will help us reduce recidivism. By doing that, we will be able to have safer communities. So we plan to split that $4 million up into several different initiatives so that we can come back and show proof of concept to the legislature, so you'll see that the money's not wasted, and hopefully at some point increase that funding where we can show you that what we're doing is successful. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have hiccups, but we're going to try. The $100,000 there is to provide assistance with successful reintegration. For that, that's strictly the documents. For to provide, we finally have the Social Security Administration signed off on an MOU with us to provide replacement Social Security cards for American-born citizens. We already have a process in place to help a person obtain a separate, a replacement birth certificate. We have a process in place. We need to increase to have a person get a civil ID card while they're in our custody. One of the other initiatives we want to look at is, if a person is in our custody and they have a driver's license, try to get that driver's license renewed before it expires, before they get out. Once it expires, they have to go through the testing again. You have the $210,000 there for the refuge collection. That's just an increase in the cost to operate. We have $400,000 increased coverage for security surveillance systems. You'll see $125,000 for the fire alarm system, which we need to have for sure. $180,000 in additional for security radios and equipment. Some of our radios are 15 to 20 years old. $146,794 to replace in-cell toilet sink modules. That's where the sink and the toilet is just one unit together. And then the last one is $112,000 for technician level trauma-informed care for non-uniformed staff. That is table 6.
Members, any questions? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Happy New Year. Table
Same to
15, your CIP requests.
Mm-hmm.
So this is for the new OCCC.
The $30 million.
Yeah, so that's you don't have a request in fiscal year 27. It's just fiscal year 26.
Right. So I'll explain why we did that. We originally had a request in for $250 million for fiscal year 27. And speaking with the governor's office, we decided to push that to fiscal year 2028. because of several reasons. One, the animal quarantine facility, the DLNR Department of Agriculture needs to move out of that facility. And part of the $250 million ask in 2028 is the demolition of that facility so that we can bring in the heavy equipment to start the construction if we get the funding that we ask for.
The 30 million requests, thank you for that. Does that also include design for new courtrooms to make it more
Yeah, so-
efficient?
Yes, so inside of each new facility we put up, we have decided, I've already spoken to Rod Miley and Chief Justice Reckenwald. Chief Justice Reckenwald is speaking to the Chief District Judge and the Chief Circuit Court Judge to determine whether one courtroom inside the jail or two will do. We agreed that we would put whatever they needed in the facility, including having it hooked up electronically to do the hearings, distance hearings. Also, that we would support their request for staffing the courts. It's important to have the courtrooms in the jails to cut down on transportation because that's the most dangerous time for corrections officers when we're doing transports. If we're able to later on put a new jail in Kona, then it will have a courtroom in the jail because we're constantly putting vans on the road for 2.5 hours each way. So in the OCCC, yes, I've already spoken to them and I'm waiting for Rod Miley to get back to me so we can sit down with whoever their point of contact is to come out with the layout, how they want the courtroom to be laid out. Now, it's not going to be mahogany and imported glass. It will be bricks and mortar courtroom.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, the 30 is for planning design then.
It's planning,
So that'll
design,
give you a better cost on construction.
right, and the RFQ, RFP process and the bridging documents.
Any other questions? If not, adjourn. Thank you.
Oh my God, thank you. I feel
So
so much better.
we'll reconvene at 2:30.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Vice Chair. I appreciate it.
Right?
Oh, you're on time.
Oh, same. Oh, sorry. We have law enforcement, DLE,
DLE and the DOD.
and then we have Department of Ag. Okay, well, recess so that we can switch them out. Okay, calling meeting back to order. So now we hear from the Department of Law Enforcement. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity for let us to talk about our initiatives. Just quickly to summarize what we're trying to do this coming year. It is to implement a agricultural crime enforcement program, to implement a traffic enforcement program, which includes a commercial vehicle inspection, to solidify our efforts in the fight against illegal fireworks with the development of a explosive enforcement program. We are also still trying to build a police facility with overnight holding capabilities of detainees at the DKI airport location, which is the enterprise lot. It will not only house our cell block, but our special operations section and airport patrol section. We are also requesting planning, design, and site selection for the state training center. We would also like to build a police facility in central Oahu by Wahiwa area to use that as a staging location for our agricultural crime and traffic enforcement and fireworks program. And we are also requesting to build a police facility in Leeward, Oahu to support those same functions and also to use as a staging area to respond to violence out in that area, and also to provide coverage for some of the schools at DOE's request. We are looking to invest in next gen law enforcement internet technology that would help us with our staffing needs, but also with these IT enhancements that will help us in our investigations statewide. we are, and finally, we are still trying to reduce the salary disparity between the state law enforcement officers and our county counterparts, so that we can fill our vacancy shortage. And we are available for questions.
Maybe we go over like in table 6.
Chair, table 6, basically in the relevant highway. So,
So those were the approved by the governor. The yellow, okay, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay, so.
Just now, why don't, before you start, just state the department-wide priority so we know which line.
Okay,
So if it skips around, that's okay because of what you just said. As just state the number and we can track it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, before you start though, you wanna introduce.
I'm sorry. So on my right is Brandon Azuka, my executive officer. To my left is Russell Fong, my ASO. Behind me, Jared Radula, the Deputy Director for Law Enforcement, Michael Vincent, Deputy Director for Administration. Behind him is Thomas Yamamoto, our Fiscal Officer, and Jennifer Idami, our HRO.
Thank you.
So in looking at our priority numbers on table 6. Thank you. Priority 1 through 6 is actually relates to this the salary disparity.
Yeah.
But in talking with the governor's office, they are going to put a placeholder in the budget once they can resolve the mechanics on how to resolve this disparity. So they are working with the union and working with budget and finance on that.
Okay.
And then we skip down to the next our next priority would be the law enforcement IT software project, where we are requesting $25 million for FY 26 and FY 27. And Brandon can go over what we're trying to.
So 2 things. First thing is using or replacing some of our vacancies on our administrative side, using IT to hopefully alleviate some of the long-term vacancies and costs for personnel. What we've been focused on recently is the travel approval form. We're close to going live to automate that. I know it takes hours and hours to fill out this form. So we've worked on a solution to automate it where you can actually select the city or where the conference is, and through AI, it'll pull hotels, the cheapest hotels and flights, where you can just select and make that process a lot easier. We've also looked at our internal HR transactions, how to move people within our organization quicker, to make it easier for managers and secretaries to be able to plug in, the 89 days or do the counting for the staff. And then finally, we're looking at how to streamline procurement for our department. So those are kind of the initial administrative functions that we've taken a look at. And as far as law enforcement statewide, we are very interested in creating a statewide personnel and critical infrastructure situational awareness platform where we can protect the state's critical infrastructure interests as well as personnel. So I know there's issues with notifications in this building. If something goes on next door, you want to know what's going on. So we're working on a platform where all appointed officials, all staff will be notified immediately of what's going on in the area, and then you'll be provided updates to know what law enforcement is doing, or first responders in general, to keep people safe. And then also in those critical situations, we're working on an application through the Safer Watch platform that will, I guess, give guidance, but we don't want to tell people exactly what to do if there's, an active shooter or a fire, but provide guidance on how to keep yourself or your staff safe. If the incident is occurring on the east side, how can we get personnel on the west side out of that building as soon as possible? and then bring first responders in through a different entrance so that they don't cross paths. So overall, how we can protect the state's critical infrastructure and then provide notifications and keep state personnel safe. So that's what our IT ask covers.
Okay, moving on to priority number 20.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought, what about 16?
Yeah, 16 is a request for 3 FTE positions to manage our grants over at the Office of Homeland Security.
Okay,
Item number 20, we're anticipating the Wahiwa Civic Center and Court Complex to be up in 18 months. So we're requesting 18 FTEs for deputies, not only to cover the courthouse, but the state building that's next to it, the parking complex. And also, if available, they will do some regional patrols of the schools in the area. We're asking for them to be funded with A funds that will give us the latitude to have them complete all of those law enforcement functions as opposed to the U funds that was originally made by the governor's office. Priority number 23 is the prescription monitoring program annual maintenance costs. And that's $460,000, I mean, and 810, excuse me, for FY 26 and 27. And then on priority number 24 is the additional funding needed for the annual operating expenses for Narcotics Enforcement Division. And that was $392,000 for FY 26 and $402,000 for FY 27. Moving down to item number 30 is the annual maintenance fee for the Narcotics Enforcement Laboratory, which is nationally and internationally certified. And that cost is $64,000 for FY 26 and $74,000 for FY 27. Did you want to?
Yeah, and then after this, we have things that are not on here.
Okay, after this, we have the traffic section that we want to bring in. And then the section, and that one is request for 27 positions. And that's at 5 million.
which priority
Okay,
number is
so
it?
this is something new that came in after because after we gave the report, other departments wanted us to bring this to our attention.
Oh, okay, maybe what we can do is get at some point, update the form and then you
Okay.
can just add but why don't you explain it now?
Okay, you want to explain the traffic?
Sure. So, what happened after the budget submission, Department of Transportation approached us and wanted DLE to increase its presence on the highway for speeding, DUI enforcement, and commercial vehicles inspection. The commercial vehicles inspections, we're talking about the large tour buses and the 18-wheelers that pull the cargo out of the ports.
Okay, next,
Well, how much was it for?
27, I think.
What?
27, you said it?
How much?
I'm looking it up. right now.
For the amount?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one is for the 27 positions, it'll be 5,000,000, 5,000.
No, excuse me.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, for the 27 position, the ask is for FY 26, $5,125,999. That's with the initial costs of all the equipments and vehicles that we would need. Then in FY 27, that cost drops down to $3,196,696.
Chair, question on this subject matter. Like, is that island statewide or just Honolulu? Your new program.
Initially, it's just Honolulu. We're gonna start off with Honolulu first.
Okay.
Is highway enforcement?
Why would you do?
Is highway enforcement? You said enforcement, DUI, highway enforcement,
Correct.
speeding, stuff like that.
Speeding, DUIs on,
So are you overlapping with the police?
yes, so DOT had talked to HPD and they were in agreement to it because they said they were so short in staffing also. So DOT wanted us to complement or supplement HPD in this area.
Well, that's fine and well, but when you have a duplicate system, that means everything duplicated, right?
And that's
Cars.
that managed by the city and by the county on the police department. They're the one, that's their jurisdiction.
Yeah, so isn't it better that they get amount of people that they need instead of us creating a whole nother level with cars and insurance and everything else and having DUIs and speeding and
We do that now. We actually do that now in areas where we have presence. For example, at the airport. You know, we do DUI enforcement and.
but
speeding
that's
enforcement.
within the airport
Airport
complex. That's not
That's
statewide.
that's on the road. I mean, it's on Nimitz Highway and Lagoon Drive and that area.
But it's limited, right? I mean, you're not doing
Right now,
statewide.
it is limited,
Yeah.
yes. Our harbor patrol
That's state.
does the same thing. Our central patrol also does speed enforcements on the street. So the Department of Law Enforcement, we actually have statewide jurisdiction, you know, concurrent with the county jurisdiction.
Understand, but you're asking us for millions to shore it up, to duplicate what the police is doing statewide, I mean, island-wide.
Correct, but this is also going to be U funded, so DOT had indicated that they were going to use federal funds for this,
So not one state dollar.
not to my
Not
knowledge. no.
general fund.
No, it's not general funded. This is all U funded.
And it's gonna be that way. Now, you're not gonna come back in the future and say, we don't have the funds now. You guys gotta
We
supplement.
can ask Ed when he comes.
Another question further to continue. So is the city and county giving up the police jurisdiction on DUIs then?
No, it's going to be concurrent.
Are they reimbursing us? Cost sharing?
No, he
No.
just said it's gonna be federal funds paying for it.
All right.
Okay, next.
Crazy.
Good question. So you know, if you pull over on truck, you guys also doing weight, overweight on those roads, and then you guys would be doing the fines across the board. How does those funds, where does those funds go?
So what would right now, DOT has inspectors, but they don't have any law enforcement authority. So what DOT is envisioning is that we will have deputies with their inspectors, you know, working some of the stations, but also if it necessitates pulling one of the, you know, the trucks over, we have the authority to do that.
But the inspector does not.
So, but what he's saying is, so if you pull them over, I don't know, maybe the cargo is overweight.
No, but you're gonna pull him over at the request of the inspector.
Correct. And we're also going to be cross-trained. There's a federal program that the same training that the DOT inspector has, our deputies that are assigned to that unit will also have.
We passed a law that says that you cannot have these big trucks from a certain time and that they cannot be in the left lane, or is that what that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna enforce? 'Cause
We're,
nobody enforces it now.
we're gonna enforce all regulations that relates to commercial vehicles with DOT.
Okay, so you're gonna actually enforce these laws that I just brought up because
Yeah.
nobody's doing.
Correct.
That law is kind of vague. Yeah, because it's the large, if there's nobody on the lane, then the large truck can be there. Or if there's few cars on the lane, in the lane, then the large truck can be there. So I'm not sure, you know, how you argue what's few.
Well, yeah, you try go there 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, you see these big trucks and it's bumper to bumper
Yeah,
from here. From
yeah, it's that middle though. I mean, the extremes are easy. It's the middle that's gonna be hard to, I don't know who makes the judgment call
Right,
about
and
the
then
middle.
It starts supposedly till 8 o'clock or What's the law?
I don't know the specifics on the regulation. Senator.
No, well, they don't have the team yet for the highway.
Well, they said.
No, but
they
they
can
can
do it.
existing,
They said
and
they can do it, huh? They have-
No, we do existing traffic enforcement, not
That's
com-
traffic,
but not the commercial vehicles. Our deputies are not trained in that yet.
but you have that authority.
We will have that
You
authority,
don't-
yes.
You have
Yeah,
that authority,
correct.
right?
They just don't.
But we're
do
not,
it now.
we're not doing that right now.
But you could.
Theoretically,
authority.
yes. If we had the training, yes.
Gotta really train.
For your, going back to the law enforcement, the traffic enforcement requests. Does that mean you would also have to stand up new training materials or new recruit classes, or can you fold that into your existing training and recruit classes?
Some of it's overlapping, but the commercial vehicle inspections would be new, and the accident investigations would be new.
And everything else would be similar.
Right.
Thanks.
Question. Sorry. The construction of the police facility in Leeward, Oahu, any particular location that you guys are considering? Leeward, Oahu is kind of big. Any particular area?
We were hoping to find a location in Waianae, the Waianae area.
Take that.
Why didn't you guys have?
What we really wanted to do was not only build the police facility there, but also have some type of
That it's not, it doesn't.
mental
cover
health
anybody.
evaluation facility there, or a safe center there where instead of actually having to take somebody into custody, maybe we can find treatment for them or an alternative for them as opposed to going into the system depending on the violation.
I'm curious, for your top priorities is to get the different, or I guess the increase in salary for your officers. What is it that you still need to figure out to make that a reality? Because we can give the money, but if there's a second mechanism that needs to happen, does it have to be collectively bargained, or is this a differential? Like what's the method that you're trying to get to?
So my understanding is it has to be done prior to the master agreement for this upcoming collective bargaining. So they are working on some type of supplemental agreement.
So it's a supplemental agreement only with your department,
Correct.
your sheriffs.
Correct.
So it does it because you're only, well, there's a bargaining unit for state law enforcement. So I would assume that's sheriffs and then
Field care
ACOs,
officers,
right?
right,
So you're only doing this for sheriffs then,
Correct.
but we're not, so it's not a collective bargaining. It's just a supplemental for just sheriffs then.
Correct.
Okay. And
That-
so there was,
that's the mechanism that I understand is how they're trying to do this.
so there was no discussion about all of, what is it, Unit 15?
Unit
Going
14.
in 14, going in together to just increase the salaries for everybody, because I assume our ACOs are having a hard time recruiting and retaining.
ACOs are not in bargaining unit 14.
Oh, they're not.
No.
So then, so only sheriffs are in 14.
Sheriff's dole care officers.
Okay. Well, I would assume dole care would need increase too.
Well, right now, dole care's rating is 2 SRs above the sheriff's.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think that this will happen then? Because I think it's important. We got to do it. It's just, we don't want to add to. It said you need to happen in 2006. It's 2024, right? 25.
I can only say I'm hopeful and optimistic that it will happen because it will help our staffing shortages and our recruitment. If we can get closer to what the county is paying their officers.
Well, but the counties also still have humongous vacancies as well in the police departments.
No, absolutely. But if we're $24,000 to $30,000 behind in annual salaries from the county, we don't even have a chance.
No, I agree. And so I think there's like a time factor, right? If this doesn't work, we got to figure something else out because
Correct.
there's some sense of urgency here.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
So
Question,
just
Chair.
to add to that, so that this is just for the deputy sheriffs and the different levels of deputy sheriffs that you're asking for the increases.
Correct.
So all your vacancies, I notice there's no amount there, so you're waiting to plug in from
what you're able to negotiate.
Correct.
So, so you guys have taken on also the role of ag crimes.
Yes.
If, you know, we're adding on this portion of, you know, trucks, speeding and all this, where does that leave the ag crimes as your priority? As one of the priorities as we address that and
That would be a different division.
Right. It'll be a totally different section, which is why, you know, we do have a request for that for the ag crimes. We're requesting 46 FTEs, which include deputy sheriffs and investigators to have presence to patrol the ag crime. I mean, the agricultural lands, and to have investigators to do the follow-up investigations anytime, you know, there's an assault or a theft, you know, of equipment or agricultural products
that is what statewide.
statewide. That's why the number is so high.
And this is not something the county normally does.
I get to see what do they do. Thank
So
you.
that's been some of the issues. So when Claire was AG, you know, a lot of these issues came up. And so she was one of the ones that helped draft the bill to make sure that we could at least enforce areas where the county had very little presence.
It's usually on private lands.
Right.
In DHHL. Thank you.
The legislature passed a bill that's now law on Silver Alert. So you
Correct.
have 250,000, but the program's not even launched. Do you have an update?
Yes, so right now we're waiting for responses from our MOUs with the various county police departments. We are talking with Hawai'i to determine whether they want to activate the alert on their system or whether they want to give us access to do the alerts. And then the other thing is hopefully in 2 weeks, I will have a coordinator hired.
Yeah, but you don't have control to the system that texts everybody and all of that.
We do not, we have to
Yeah.
go through Hawai'i for that. So we've had meetings with DOD to determine what they prefer. And we'll go with whatever they prefer. You know, if they want us to do it, we'll have our coordinator do it after, you know, obviously after all the criterias are reviewed and met. So we're close.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there's been more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see lots of these little posters of, you know, senior citizens who, then, you know, they took a walk and because they have dementia,
Them.
you can't find them.
No, I agree. And we'll get it done. We're close.
Thank you.
I have a question on your forensic lab. So you're expanding the lab. What do you cover in your forensic lab right now? And what are you asking for?
Now, do you have one?
So
Yeah.
right now we have a narcotics lab that does analysis mainly for just drugs. As part of our request for the explosive enforcement, that's basically for fireworks. You know, we want to expand the lab, you know, to be able to analyze the different explosive materials and chemicals, which are a requirement for criminal prosecution of these cases. And then we also want to expand it to firearms testing and the NIBIN machine. So that way we could also address the gun violence.
So the lab tests for what though? Like I don't know.
The
what-
composition.
The composition.
composition of-
and-
of
And
the
it,
material.
then your penalties are higher, or it affects the penalties depending on the.
No, he's saying that until they do the analysis, they can't prosecute.
Yeah.
So you don't prosecute at all now from your
No,
lab? What do you
They don't
test?
prosecute.
So-
The AG would
Yeah,
prosecute.
yeah, but what do you? look
Right now, we are going to the Honolulu Police Department SIS section. They've been very helpful, but they're overwhelmed with all of their cases too. So we felt that it was time for us to be self-sufficient. And because we are recovering so many, you know, fireworks and the different cases, that it's going to be more timely for the prosecutions, which is what we're really after.
Yeah, because once you prosecute, then, you know, it sends a message Because
Correct.
there's publicity about it.
On the notion of fireworks, so in addition to that question, you also, from your report from the Illegal Fireworks Task Force, recommended a fireworks enforcement division. So is that included in your budget request here, or is that after the fact?
That was after the fact, but we do have the Form As which we can submit to you.
Do you have a rough estimate? Because I think
Yes,
you're
yes,
asking
we
for
do.
positions and there was a funding for that.
So we are to include the forensic laboratory, the first year startup cost would be $5,168,977. For FY 27, it would be $2,333,054.
And that includes the lab plus the positions.
Correct. The estimate cost of the lab is approximately $2 million. That's in the startup cost.
Thank you.
How many positions are you requesting?
It should be one administrator, 2 admin staff, and 5 investigators.
But
That way to run the lab?
We
Investigate.
re-described current positions in anticipation of this to run. We were planning to try to stand up a forensic laboratory before all of this. And we have re-described current positions already, existing positions that we have equivalents to run the lab.
So you currently have lab technicians or somebody
We have
toxicology or
those
something?
position numbers.
they don't have anybody there. They took old positions and
Yeah,
re-described
yeah,
it.
but they have a lab they're operating now, right?
No, they have a
But we have
narcotics
somebody
lab.
else running that too.
You don't have a forensic lab.
No.
They have the narcotics lab.
We have a narcotics lab, right?
You need a new lab.
Yeah, I know, I have a question though, so I'm gonna ask you. I wanted to follow up on a conversation we had about expanding the task force to look at homemade bombs. And how do we figure out a way to identify material being shipped for those homemade? But so if you guys can, and hopefully you had some time to think about that. Because right now the task force is very specific. But it seems like the problem has expanded much larger than that, and there's a lot of homemade bombs. So have you thought about what you could do to try to address that?
So that explosive enforcement section would do both.
Okay,
Because they're related. So a lot of times when you look at IEDs, one of the simpler ways to get the explosive filler is they take apart the fireworks. So they'll use the lift charge, the black powder, as the filler for example, for the pipe bomb, or although it's a lot less, they'll use the flash powder, which is the report of the aerial device, and mix that in to use as the filler for the device. Because really what you really need is you need fuel to burn rapidly, or the explosive material to burn rapidly, and then you have confinement. And once you have that, it's going to detonate. So that's one way they can make homemade devices, or we refer to them as IEDs. The other way they can do it is if they have any proficiency in chemistry and they get the appropriate ingredients and they mix it. And they use that as the filler, or they'll take either stolen explosives, certain grades of fertilizer, and they'll mix it with another ingredient, again, to make either, normally that you'll get a low explosives versus a high explosives, but they'll use that as the filler for your device.
okay, but for you guys to address that, that's already covered in some of the additional requests you're making, or is that something would have to be on top of that?
No, it's covered in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about the tech equipment? The surveillance equipment that you're using to scan as many containers as possible? Any adjustment there, or?
If we were actually to start to use the large scale scanners, that would have to be a different request because those are really costly. They run into millions.
But, okay, but don't you, we may need to do that though, right? Because, and I'm not trying to spend more money, but we may need to do that because my understanding is a lot of the staff who are at the ports, who may be able to identify certain containers because of threats, your tips have basically diminished. Now you don't have the same amount of information that you used to have. So now we have to replace the flow of gathering that information with something else.
That is correct. We will need another technology solution to do that. If we were to actually get that type of X-ray or particle scanner, we would probably have a higher success rate in stopping illegal fireworks coming into the state.
Yeah. What are you confused about?
I have a follow-up question
Okay.
to your comment. Has the department also reached out to some of the shipping companies and
No,
Department of
exactly. That's what I'm
Transportation?
talking about. Those people are now threatened not to speak to them and provide tips. And so
The
that's why
staff or the management of those
the
companies?
people who used to provide information so that they could identify where some of this illegal activity or product was, they no longer talk.
Okay, but then to what extent are the heads of the shipping companies participating and working with your law enforcement team to be able to crack down on this kind of
On
activity?
the management. I mean, is the management going to say you got to tell them no matter what?
You know, I think the best way to answer that question is we will use all investigative strategies to interdict
Yeah.
without really going into specifics, of who we talk to, who we don't talk to, how we identify shipments, how we, whether we're going to use explosive detection canines.
That's
or
where
not.
a lot of this overlaps with biosecurity anyway. And so the investment to me could be worth it if you're going to start looking for, biosecurity issues ahead of time and the fireworks issue. I mean, it's going to be the same equipment, I would assume.
It is, but it's very expensive from what I
I
understand.
know, but Senator Tigoy, one wrong bug, and that's also very expensive. But we can talk about that later. I think what we'll probably have to do is introduce a bill. So maybe Senator Fukunaga comment on requiring then the management. And then if you don't do it, there's penalties. Is that
But this discussion, the chair did say that you have the task force. So a lot of the things he recommended, probably you can bring it up with the task force.
No, that's the
as well.
problem, is we
Because
have
you're
to expand the
asking-
task
yeah.
force.
You're asking for what, $1.2 million this year for the task force. But can I go back to my original question? When you talked about the prosecution with regards to taking over some of the responsibilities on the highway thing, and you were saying that you would prosecute, but you don't have prosecution responsibilities.
AG.
No, I meant the state would
Okay,
prosecute.
okay. Right.
All of our cases
Yeah.
go to the AGs.
Yeah, and this seems to be a trend, unfortunately, where, the prosecutor is no longer taking many of the cases that involve the state. And so now the AG is having to ramp up. Unfortunately, HPD seems short-staffed. And so now the state they're not doing ag theft, they're not doing some of these things. And a lot of this was exposed during COVID too, which is why, like I said, the former AG ended up saying, well, if there's going to be a huge vacuum if we don't provide some kind of law enforcement at the state level.
Right, and please understand, I'm sorry.
Good.
Please understand our current illegal fireworks task force really consists of 2 investigators. Trying to complete this whole mission. And what happens is, once we determine that an operation is needed, then we rally up all the troops from all of the other departments and they all step to the plate to help. But it's really just 2 individuals, which is why we need to expand.
But because
this
of the
group.
lack of, or the information being discontinued, you went from what, 200 something thousand pounds to only 40,000 pounds.
187,000 to 40.
And that's, a lot of that was due to the fact that you no longer have the information you need.
Well, part of it too was, I think, after the initial seizures in 2023, the criminal element will adjust, right? If they figured out that we found their method of smuggling, they're gonna adjust their method of smuggling. And so now we have to adjust our strategy, to catch them.
Senator Rhodes.
Thanks. A couple of questions. One, my understanding is some of the illegal fireworks are coming in on planes. Are those commercial passenger airliners in the cargo hold, or are they on just cargo planes? And how dangerous is that? I guess that's what I'm really driving at.
So we're catching daily, almost daily, parcels from the U.S. Postal Service containing 80, 100, pounds of, maybe 200 pounds of fireworks at a time. And those are coming on our commercial planes.
And those are personal deliveries,
my-
I guess.
My recollection was that the Lockerbie flight, 40 years and 35 years ago, the explosive was the size of like a cassette. For those who are old enough to remember what a cassette deck is, but it wasn't very big, and it brought down a 747. Is this something we should be losing sleep about?
I would be concerned. The Lockerbie flight, probably if describing the size that you had, you had indicated was probably high explosives.
Okay, so the fireworks are not as potent.
It depends on the confinement. It depends on how much you have.
Okay.
So if you're asking whether a parcel of fireworks can take a plane down, it really, there's a lot of factors you have to look at. How much of a fire did it start? What the location, in relation to, to the side of the plane. All of that makes a difference, but it's a bad day if you have fireworks going off in the cargo of your plane.
Yeah. Okay, so one final question. It's okay. So if you encounter illegal fireworks in a shipping container, for instance, and you can't figure out who was shipping it and where it was going to, you can still just confiscate it, right? You don't have to. There's no attempt to. So even if there is no prosecution, you still take the stuff off the street.
Correct. We will still seize the illegal fireworks. We will always try to do an historical investigation on the shipment. And once it's no longer determined as evidence, then we have to go through the task of disposing of it, which in itself is very problematic.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, George.
What does it cost you to dispose 200,000 pounds of fireworks?
We had one estimate to dispose of, I want to say it was about 148,000 pounds of fireworks, and it was slightly over $1 million.
Oh,
Couldn't sell it to like the hotels that have illegal and burn it.
I was gonna say that.
I mean, Hilton put someone on everything.
They're doing drones now. Most of them are doing drones now. Drones.
Well, so there's really 3 recommended methods to dispose of fireworks. The first one and again, it depends on the type of fireworks. Like your mortar shells, you cannot burn, so we would countercharge. The other fireworks we would burn, or you function it as designed.
I mean, instead of costing us money, we can get some money or like.
You might need legislation to allow that though, huh?
Correct,
I
and
don't think they
there's
can sell.
probably huge liability issues on that because we're selling product that's considered illegal. You're going to have product that might be classified as 1.4 consumer fireworks, but they're overloaded, so you don't know what's going to happen when you light it off. So all of that will factors in on whether we would actually, try to sell it or not, for to reduce some.
That's why Dags has all that stuff in that warehouse because he can't sell it. The old furniture, whatever. So we need law to sell it. No, you can't sell it.
Customs, and they always have a yearly sale of all the.
It's federal.
They're not selling fireworks though. Oh, yeah.
I'd like
Yes.
to go back to Senator Fukunaga's question with regards to the shipping. We all know that the foreign ships can come into the island waters. So we know that China, if the fireworks are coming in, it goes to the ports of anywhere on the mainland. So the transport for the shipments all go to whether it's Pasha or Matson or whoever. So I think a lot of the investigations of the shipping issues too, I think you guys got to go to the mainland and see where all these things are being unloaded, particularly those labeled as coming from a foreign country, you know, like China. So whether it's the stopping of shipments, either East Coast or West Coast, but I think most of them come in via the West Coast ports. So for that part on the investigations of where these shipments are coming from via maritime, you know, looking at the ports, the only thing I can see is, I think issues like the airlines and those personal shipments coming is pretty hard to detect, but boy, you guys got a lot of problems and issues and more of an activity that you probably will have to have a lot more people, you know,
Well,
doing the
technology helps
investigations.
though, right? It's
Yeah.
really the technology that.
And the
That's
working
what
with
we're.
partnerships,
Yeah.
yeah, on your contacts on
Right.
the mainland.
So just one question on if it costs $1 million to dispose, when you confiscate, can you charge back to whomever you confiscate from so that there's some payment for disposal? How, or do you know who they are? I suppose. if
No,
it's
I guess the
companies.
question should be, what legislation do you need so you can do
Yeah,
that? I mean, that,
Right, okay.
because.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
so you
we-
can
yeah.
do that now.
Yes,
Have
we
you
can,
done
we
that?
can do that now.
Have you done it? Have you charged anybody?
Everything is under investigation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But when you finish, I mean, with whoever you confiscate from, you can
Yeah,
charge back.
he's saying it's under investigation. So
Yes.
you got a sidebar conversation.
That's so you got a couple guilty pleas already, or at least a couple for
Correct.
felonies.
And those individuals, we can probably go back and charge them for disposal charges, but those were not the container cases.
Well, those weren't big ones.
No.
So all those companies that are selling fireworks during the holidays, particularly after Christmas and New Year's, do you folks send investigators to see what they're selling on the retail market?
So with legislation last year, we now have inspection rights and they're now required to keep what we call an A&D book, acquisition and disposition book. So we can look at those records.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna recess. Okay, go ahead then. I thought everybody looked bad, you know. I didn't realize.
Okay, just on the fireworks. So you guys know of a machine that they actually use to, as a scanner to run on containers?
Yes.
And how much is that?
Well, can you get her a real estimate though?
Yeah, because if you're disposing at $1 million, I think the investment would be worth it.
So Customs and Border Protection already has that for the foreign cargo. So we can get a cost for you on that.
Okay, my question is, how does a new entity like you folks rack up in 3 months, $135,983 in overpayments?
Because we inherited that from Department of Public Safety. So what happened was once the Sheriff's Division and the other units came over on January 1st of 2024, we did our due diligence in auditing all of the leave records and payment records and the overtime.
Okay.
So that's how we uncovered a lot of these overpayments, and we are in the process of addressing that now.
Okay, so you came into being in January and it was 0000 all the way until September 2024. All of a sudden it goes up to $87,290. So you found that many from all those months. You found it in September and you posted it. None of it was new overpayments. And then in October, It went up to 135,000. 1 month later, 135,983. So you
Correct.
found more or you had your own overpayments?
We found more.
So none of this is current overpayments.
No, I think a small portion of it is, but the majority of it, it came from prior to January 1st.
Get all the records. So we're still waiting for portions of records, so as we get them and we audit, if we find something that's
Okay, it's just odd that it would take that many months and then September, you only got a portion of it, October, another portion. And then November, it was carried over. But these employees who have been overpaid are with you now?
They are currently still with us.
So what are you doing to collect it?
Not all though, some retired or some left.
The smaller amounts of the overpayments usually happens, we find it when they retire. But there are active cases
So what
relating to the overpayment.
are you doing to collect it?
It's being investigated right now.
No, okay, the law is clear. Are you aware of the law? If we overpay, we can go in and collect X amount, X percentage to pay it off. And if it's under a certain amount, you can collect it all at once. Or you can collect it, I think it was $50
Yeah.
a paycheck.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to collect it? Actively doing to collect it?
Just state your name.
The division.
He's the fiscal.
Hi, my name is Thomas Yamamoto. I'm the fiscal officer for the department. In regards to overpayments, we followed DAG's comptroller.
Put the mic closer.
Oh, sorry about that.
Say that again?
We follow the comptroller memoranda on how to
And what is that?
so we reach out to the
Individual.
individual and we come up with a settlement plan according to the parameters set by DAGs, and we follow that for repayment purposes.
Okay, so DAGS told us just today that it's up to each department. Okay, and they do put out a memorandum, but it's up to each department. And accordingly, there's a law that says you can collect X amount. If it's under so much, you can collect up to a certain percentage after a higher amount. But the departments, as far as I know, has not been utilizing that, and they've been charging like $25 a paycheck. And so some of these people have been paying for years, $25, and then they retire, whatever, and then you cannot collect the money.
Okay, so you're in how many active cases now? To try to get
There are several. We send in a report monthly to DAGs, and I believe if we negotiate like a price that the person who got overpaid was okay with, then they can pay back however much they want to. But I believe after a certain amount, it's like 25% of their base pay.
I think it's more than that. You should go check the law, because I know I actually increased it. And it was signed into law. So we can collect a lot more, but it's not been done.
If they agree to it, then we can.
Well, it doesn't have to
but-
be agreed to. You have, DAGs have the control of the paycheck. So when we overpay, we should be able to take that money out. So when we underpay, we have to immediately make them whole and pay it immediately, not $25 a check to make up the money that we didn't pay them. And vice versa, when we overpay them, the law is clear on how much you can get. You don't have to have an agreement because the checks are cut by DAGs.
We will look into it, Senator, and try
Can
to
we
get
get a
the
report
overpay.
back from you guys? And then you folks should be very familiar with how much you can take, how much you can get back. I mean, we're talking over $1 million with all the departments. And you folks have one of the higher ones. So there needs to be a better effort in recouping these funds because
But this is overpayments that you inherited, right? It was the previous department.
Auditing process, we're finding.
But it's current employees that owe the money. So it's your employees, current employees that owe the funds, and now it's up to you, the department, according to DAGs, to be able to recoup these funds, or maybe we can just take it out of your budget.
We're actively
Can we see what actions you're actually doing and how much you've collecting?
Yeah, we could do that. And
Okay.
and another thing is that we inherit things from PSD as well, and they had agreements with some of the employees as well. So it's hard to break those agreements.
Okay, but the whole issue, and I know this very well, because the law states you don't have to have an agreement.
Stuff.
We will resolve it and provide you the information once we get it.
To follow up to your, Senator Kim's comments with regards to, and very troubling, that she's saying that if there's an arrangement for a payback of $25 a month, the person retires, then what happens? Perhaps there should be a bill to change that upon retirement, that all that's due to the state is paid out of before retirement checks are sent out.
It's supposed to be that way, but for some reason they're not.
It's sent to the it's sent to the AGs if they retire. It's not-
Yeah, so then we gotta go get
Yeah,
collection.
then you
But
collect.
do we know,
cannot
though,
collect
that-
it.
Can withhold it.
do we know though that that's been done, that they've been paying before retirement?
Yeah, they have a list of the people and how much they're paying, because I've seen.
And
this
what about
record. Like
retirement?
it's $25. Well, after that, then it has to go to collection and the AG's got to go after them and it's not high on their priority list.
So if they
So they write it
retire,
off.
so
They write it
if they
off.
retire, why don't we have a bill or a law to say that before retirement, any excess that's due the state be taken out of the
And
retirement?
it's not just retirement, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
HSTA, they can take all their vacation and stuff.
Okay,
upfront.
we can do, maybe we'll
And
do,
then when they.
wait, maybe we'll do an info briefing on overpayment later, because we surely should be hearing about their budget.
It's part of their
No, I know,
budget.
but they're not gonna be able to solve it right now. Because at the same point, I mean, they should be applauded for the fact that they did the audit and
They
found
uncovered
it,
it.
because if not, if they just took it
Exactly.
over, they wouldn't have even known about it.
No, because I would have said, Public Works, why is your, or
Public safety.
Public Safety, why is your numbers now lower? Where is it going? No, but if you look at what Public Safety, you look at their numbers and they've always had a high carryover.
Wouldn't be public safety.
Oh, well, not now, but we were prior to that.
Yeah, these are ones they found, when they audited the paperwork, when they got from public safety, the former Department of Public Safety, that's when they started finding it.
So what does this tell us then? That we're, well, I'm just saying, what does it tell us? That there's a lot more overpayments than what's on this record then? Because this record has $1 million plus. So if
Yeah.
we're finding
So
out
if the
that,
departments aren't auditing, you may be right.
yeah, so we're talking several $1 million of monies that is being
Yeah.
given out that we're not entitled to.
Okay, that's a bill to require auditing.
I just got one other question on going back to table 15, your CIP request. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier.
CIP request, okay.
So for your construction and equipment for the receiving desk, airport section,
Payments.
16.6 over the next 2 fiscal years. You guys already have a site identified for that?
Yes.
And if so, where in particular?
It's by the airport, the old Enterprise.
Oh, the old Enterprise.
Parking lot
Okay.
across from
Question.
And
the
Henry,
Dunkin'
the bill is
Donuts
coming your way.
and IHOP complex right
That's
across.
the
the street.
labor issue.
Okay, and then the 4 million for your law enforcement training selection, you don't have a site yet.
We do not have a site yet.
Thank you.
Just a follow-on question, the status of the $4 million for relocation we gave you last time, what has that bought you, or is that a site that you're using, or is that rental, or what's happening with that?
So we are using those funds for our planning and design. We have already put out an RFP on
This is
that.
for this new development that you're. doing.
Correct.
But where are you living now?
We're still living in Kiavi Street for the receiving desk
So
and
you haven't.
at the airport. We have not moved yet.
Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna recess for DOD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, reconvening. So now we're here from the Department of Defense who will present their biennial budget requests. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Hey, Chair Dela Cruz, Vice Chair Moriwaki, Chair Elefante, Vice Chair Wakai, and committee members. I'm Major General Steve Logan, the Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii Department of Defense. Aloha, good afternoon, and Happy New Year. The following informational briefing provides the department's budget request for state fiscal years 2026 and 2027. There's been some considerable turnover within the Department of Defense, so please allow me a moment to introduce the team that I brought with me today. To my left is Brigadier General Philip Mallory, the Deputy Adjutant General for the State of Hawaii, call sign Buddha. I have the Chief of Staff for the Hawaii Army National Guard, Colonel Ronald Hogston. The Director of Staff for the Hawaii Air National Guard, Colonel Shane Nagatani, call sign Nuke. Administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, Colonel retired James Barros. The Administrator of Community Programs that oversees the Youth Challenge and Job Challenge Academies, Brigadier General retired Bruce Oliveira. Director of the Office of Veteran Services, Lieutenant Colonel John Alamoden. Military Support Officer, Brigadier General retired Neil Mitsuyoshi. Our Administrative Services Officers, Colonel retired Rusty Spray. And our Chief Engineering Officer, Major Shao Lee. So the primary mission of the State of Hawaii Department of Defense is to enable a safe and thriving state and nation. We're a very small department with a relatively small state budget, but it's important to highlight that although small, the State of Hawaii Department of Defense has a significant mission and that matching state funds provide access to significant federal funding. The department requests approximately $40.5 million in state funding for state fiscal year 2026, and these funds would bring in approximately $74 million in matching federal funds. This funding would allow the department to manage its 411 open projects against an approximate $2.3 billion in federal grants. And I'll cover that a little bit more fully later on in my testimony. The major adjustments contained in the budget request focus on sustainment, safety, and reorganization based on lessons learned from the Maui wildfires. These adjustments include approximately $1.3 million in recurring funds to sustain the department's software, hardware, cloud services, and maintenance. Prior to this year, the department was forced to sustain this by using personnel vacancy savings. However, the department can no longer internally sustain its IT fiscal requirements. These are fully articulated in departmental priorities number 1 and 2 with the Form A's that were already submitted. For number 2, the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency requests $2.7 million to provide funding support for 32 core emergency management positions. The requested additional state funding for HIMA personal positions is critical to sustain emergency management, planning, response, recovery, and mitigation efforts statewide, including direct support for the 4 Hawaii counties while administering those 411 FEMA grant funded projects, equating to approximately $2.3 billion. These are articulated in the Form A's and are annotated under departmental priorities 13 and 14. The Hawaii Army National Guard requires 3 new positions and approval to upgrade 4 existing positions. All of this is 100% federally funded at no expense to the state. The Hawaii National Guard Youth Challenge Program positions are funded in accordance with the National Guard Youth Challenge Program Cooperative Agreement Program. The National Guard Bureau supports this program with 75% federal cost share, with the state providing a 25% match. The current federal funding appropriation is insufficient to incorporate state-required federal payroll fringe for all program employees. These are fully articulated with Form A's and departmental priority number 8, and salary increases for our folks to bring them up to the appropriate wage is articulated in departmental priority number 17. The program is unable to hire or retain all of its required employees at full-time salaried rates, and 44 employees are currently budgeted at an hourly rate or 89-day hire due to the lack of the federal funds that cover the fringe rate. Because of this, the Youth Challenge Program is requesting an additional $1.9 million to pay the federal portion of the state-mandated fringe benefits. This will allow compliance with staffing supervision requirements and ensure cadet safety for the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at both our campuses. CIP is more clearly articulated in Table 15. The governor's budget approved 8 of our 12 CIP projects requested for a total of $61.8 million in FY26 and $19.5 million in FY 27 for general obligation bond funds, respectively, to match the $62.7 million in FY 26 and $17.7 million in other federal funds for both of those fiscal years. Overall, and in summary, the governor's budget approved a total of $81.4 million in general obligation funds for both years and $80.5 million in other federal funds. For our vacancies, DOD has a total of 504 authorized positions, 292 permanent and 212 temporary. Our total vacancies are 142, or 29% of our overall manning, trending downward by 43 from last fiscal year, which represents a 28% reduction. So we've definitely turned the corner of our vacancies, and we're on path to meet our 5% vacancy rate goal that I've established as the new adjutant general. Of these 142 positions, 30 are 100% federally funded, and 65 are 75% federally funded. So the following is a status breakdown for the vacancies. 24 positions are being established. They were fairly new, and the descriptions and classifications are being worked. 8 positions are being redescribed due to the inability to fill them at their current described position description. 24 positions are awaiting state matching funds, which are also included in our budget request. 26 positions are filled by the hourly or exempt hourly wage employees or 89-day hires. 18 of those are from the Youth Challenge Academy that I previously described, and there's 4 others that are also at that rate. 15 positions are awaiting DHERD classification, and 48 positions are pending hiring actions. I have the breakdown, but it's anywhere between an internal vacancy announcement, pending the internal interviews, pending civil service interviews, or the conditional offer being given to the individuals. For telework, of the 362 current employees, 1 employee is authorized for telework for reasonable accommodation purposes. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Department of Defense's budget requests, and we're available to answer any questions that the committees may have.
Maybe you can go over table 6 and just explain what you want added to the budget.
Excuse me. Okay, so I briefly mentioned some of the items that are contained on table 6.
You can,
For
if
the,
you talked about it, we just say previously mentioned, then we can move on.
okay. Thanks, Chair.
So just go line by line from department-wide priority.
Okay. So I previously briefed departmental priority numbers 1 and 2.
Okay.
Number 4 is a distributed antenna system upgrade. It's a little bit of money, but it'll give us a greater communicative link that we can communicate. Number 5 is a new salary schedule for the engineer classification. Number 6 is also a new accountant position. Number 8, I previously briefed for the fringe request for the Youth Challenge Academy. 17, I briefed for the salary increases. 34 is the upgrades with federal funds for the CFMO or our facility management office engineer position upgrades. Departmental priority number 36 establishes a new engineer position. 39, a pest technician position. Number 40 is a visitor control technician position. 12 speaks to building maintenance supervisor positions. 13 and 14 is to reorganize Hawai'i, and I mentioned that in my original testimony. 16 is for the limited English proficiency program position, which is mandated to us, but it's for a position to enable folks to get after emergency management and response capabilities if their English is not their first language. And I think that covers the numbered departmental priorities.
Members, questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So could you explain, your siren modernization at 5 million or actually $10 million? What does that cover, and is it statewide? How are you connected with other departments that are also using siren modernization funding?
Okay, well, in effect, we identified a lot of concerns with our siren program after the Maui wildland fires. But I'll bring up Administrator Barrows, and he can go into greater detail on the application of those program funds.
Hello. We use the siren CIP money to install new sirens. We use it to upgrade existing sirens that require contracting support. And those are the real two that we use it for. The installation of new sirens and the upgrade for our current system.
So it's statewide.
Statewide, yes.
And where are these installed?
Across on every island.
Your installations or the county relation with the county?
Private, state land, county land. We do have a map on Hawai'i that shows the exact location of all our sirens across the state. So it depends on where we're putting it. Sometimes we have to get with Department of Transportation, highways to get land, and we'll put a siren there, or private land and do a MOU with them to install a siren.
So when you install these, you're working with the counties, and so that everybody is clear on what the siren means and
Yes.
being able to be alerted.
Yes.
So we don't have a situation like in Maui.
Yes.
And this $10 million covers the whole state, or are you coming back for more funding? But 10 million covers the state.
Yes, because we will phase it in. So, for example, this year we're getting after some tsunami sirens that will be fixed within the next 4 months. There's also a work order with DAGS right now with about 6 sirens for replacing our very old sirens that are being replaced. So this would be the money for the next phase of modernization and upgrades.
Just to follow up regarding the topic. So the existing sirens, they're all existing, but according to what your plans are, as an example, this year, how many were new installations? Aside from just upgrading the old ones?
Let me get the exact number for you
on each island?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can do that.
How many new installations were made?
We can get that number.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you talk about the tsunami sirens, that's only those that are located on seawards, yeah?
Yes, the inundation zones,
In
that's pretty much our priority right now is get those sirens
on
replaced
each
immediately.
island and make sure that it covers whether it's farthest away in communities, such as the Big Island in Ka'u,
Yes.
but everywhere where there's the ocean.
Yes.
Okay, on the tsunami zone areas.
Yes,
Thank you
correct.
so much.
Just as a follow-up, I know that you folks have old sirens. How many of them are obsolete that you guys cannot find parts for? And trying to work with the county, I know we had some issues in Paia because of permitting. How fast or how are you guys able to work with them now that has moved a lot of these projects forward? And if you had to, I'll just wrap another question. If you had to put sirens in all these new areas for every place in the tsunami area, because I know that we've had challenges in the other areas that everybody wants a siren, what would be the total cost and how many of them would be needed?
We can get that number for you on the total amount that we're looking at. Right now, the Hawai'i team looks at our sirens program, and If we fix our tsunami sirens that currently exist, we'll get coverage in the correct areas. We do want to modernize the sirens. So that's part of the money for the ask. The sirens that are very old on our map, they show as black, that they don't even work anymore. And some of them are older than General Logan. So,
Ouch.
oh, sir. And
Just to clarify, so you have different sirens for like
No.
tsunami or wildfire, or is just one siren and you have different beeps or whatever?
no, it's just one siren. It's an alert all signal.
Okay.
But when we look at where they're placed, we count those in an inundation zone as a tsunami siren.
So
But-
you have wildfire zones or you have tsunami zones and
Yes.
it's just where you place them, but it's the same siren.
Same siren. Yeah.
In your siren budget, does that include, because I know you had issues with security and perimeter fencing, so does that include all of that too?
No, it doesn't, Senator. What we're doing is the modernization is getting better casing
Okay.
and a little bit higher.
So you don't need the fencing.
We don't think so. Right now, we're talking to the counties, like how the highways division has adopted a highway. We're now socializing with the communities to say, hey, this is your siren, adopt a siren. So we don't think fencing for a permanent siren is required.
And normally your tsunami sirens are all along the highways anyway, or close to the highways.
Yes, a
And
lot of them.
I don't think there have been damages to the tsunami signs that I know because I travel the island and I see those, but I haven't seen, any any inference with regards to damages or whatever.
Or at least close to the ocean, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to go back to the Maui situation. The talk has always been about on fire siren. Is that conversation still going on with you guys in the county of Maui?
No, right after the fire, the governor convened the emergency management, all the administrators and the county mayors, and we do have a protocol for sirens on who's responsible and what threat. And it's a all hazard siren. It'll go off and it just alerts our citizens to check their TV, check their cell phone, check the first responders. Something's happening.
So just to be clear, it's not an actual siren that like on tsunami siren, but phone alerts, social media alert is what they're looking at as a fire breaks out.
It would be a siren that's in the neighborhood that would go off where we test, on the 1st of every month. That would just alert our citizens to check other sources. Something is happening in your area.
What is the cost of that siren?
The cost for a new siren
The one you're just talking about now to alert?
per siren, right now, we're estimate that we can fix an existing siren for just under 3,000, about 4,000
Okay,
to modernize.
so are you using the same siren as a tsunami siren for that alert, or is this a separate siren?
The
Is my
same,
question.
same.
It is the same,
Yes.
just different pitch of alert or?
No, just same alert, just different location. So the siren that's on the ocean would make the same sound as the siren in the mountain. And it's just alerting the citizens, hey, something's happening here.
Can you send me a map of where those sirens are?
Yes.
Are they up
you.
already on certain islands or it's a projection of future placements?
So we have over 400 sirens in our system right now.
Tsunami,
Just sirens,
okay.
all sirens.
How many?
Little over 400
Okay, statewide,
statewide,
All
yes. And when you look at the map, you'll see where they're located
okay.
from Malka to Makai, all of our sirens.
Okay, so in reference to the issue with the wildfires on Maui and the address that Senator DeCoite brings up, because she got 3 islands to
Mhm.
consider to worry about. So are they distributed already and built in certain areas in our state? And
Yes.
who decides where those new sirens will be placed?
So for a new siren, it's a conversation that Haima will have
Oh,
with
the counties?
the county.
Okay.
Yes,
They would decide where those placements will be then.
Right, and then the technicians will sit down and look and say, okay,
Okay,
with the sound
so-
of the siren, where's the
So
best?
reference to Senator DeCoit's question, so Maui already has those other placement to new alarm systems on Maui?
In Lahaina, we're working
Okay.
to replace those sirens that were destroyed. Yes, 3 sirens were
Okay.
destroyed in the fire. We're working to replace that
But you don't
within the 6 months.
New ones that are out there on the fields already on any of the Tri-Island.
We do have sirens, yes.
They
Okay.
do, and then they
Maybe it's
get
better if we
fixed.
look at the
Yeah,
map first
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
from there we can.
yeah.
Well,
So
I have a
wait-
question. Sorry. When you folks are going to go through out and do the repairs, do you prioritize it according to what area has the highest wildfire risk? And then also, I'm on your map right now. In my district, well, there's a few identifiers. Number 1 is beyond repair, which is obvious. It's beyond repair. But then you have 2 other categories. One says requires maintenance. The other says maintenance required. So what is the difference?
Oh, one, we need to contract outside of the technicians that I have. So the yellow, my guys can fix. The red, we have to go through DAGs to get a contractor to fix those.
Okay, so then are you going to be prioritizing your siren repairs according to what community is at more risk than others?
We look at the inundation zones of tsunami. So that's the first threat that we look at is tsunami threat. And that's where we want to prioritize the sirens.
Thank you.
I have questions on table 4 relating to your fire marshal. Yeah. Table 4, you have 2 positions for 2.2 million. So which division would the fire marshal be housed in?
So that's kind of an emergent theme that recently came up. The fire marshal, I believe there's a legislative proposal by which it will move to, or it could move to the Department of Defense. As quickly as we can, if it does come to the Department of Defense through this legislative session, as quickly as we can operationalize that position is how we would place it. Currently, it would come under me as the adjutant general, but working very closely with the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency.
So is the 2.2 for 2 positions, or is that 2 positions and standing up the operation?
I believe it's 2 positions and standing up the operation. And there has been some controversy between the salary rate for the fire marshal itself. But since it doesn't currently reside with me, I haven't done a complete staffing action. But given recent activity, the Maui wildland fires, the unfortunate fires we experienced on New Year's Day, and what most recently happened with HFD, as quickly as we can operationalize it, is how we would approach it. So we're going to lean forward throughout this year. And then if successful, and it does migrate over to the Department of Defense at the end of this session, then we'll be able to hit the ground running.
Thank you.
But that seems awkward though, because the state fire council is with Department of Labor. And they appoint the fire chief, the fire marshal. So how does that reconcile? Or you guys haven't discussed this yet?
Yeah, well, I think this is looking towards the future, toward the next fiscal
So
year,
does
if
that
in
mean-
fact it moves to the Department of Defense.
Okay, so when it moves, does that mean the state fire council no longer appoints the fire marshal and it's under you?
The correct answer, Senator, is I don't know. I haven't done a complete staffing action on that yet.
Because then wouldn't they would probably have to move the entire state fire council as well, I would assume, because the way we passed it, the fire council made up the chiefs, they determined the fire marshal.
And what agency?
Department
It's
of
the
Labor. I guess we'll just wait to see what the bill says.
Just one closing.
We have Department of Ag, so. but
Okay,
if we
just
speak
one
with-
closing. When I chaired the committee that overseen your agency, there was talk about building the new building. So whatever happened to that discussion? Moving out of,
The governor vetoed the money.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
next question.
yeah, so you guys want to move?
Yeah, but the governor vetoed the money.
Former governor.
No,
No.
okay, go ahead.
All right. I
You-
still
okay.
think you need a new building.
Okay, so-
Okay, one question. The pest technician position, you have as for 39 on table 6. You guys, you guys have a relationship with Department of Ag? Because I noticed it's vector issues. Any relationship in regards?
And so Senator, for this one, it's a federally funded position
Okay,
and it's designated for pest control on federal lands.
Yeah.
Much of our armories and facilities are, it's either a shared response between state land, federal land, and the funding, but this would be for the federal lands that some of our facilities reside on.
has the outreach by the Department of Ag in this regard, say, you guys come back, brown tree snake. Will you guys take that snake? You guys give them to Department of Ag under them, or you guys just kill them and fly them?
I don't recall that ever happening to any of our aircraft that are returning back from some of those areas, but
If it does
did,
occur.
we would definitely call the Department of Agriculture and turn it over to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn and then we'll just take a 10-minute break and then have Department of Ag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Agriculture and Environment. So this afternoon, we'll hear from the Department of Ag who will give us a preview of their biennium budget request. So good afternoon, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, good afternoon, members of the Budget Committee, WAM Committee, and AEN, Ag and Environment. My name is Sharon Hurd, Chairperson of the Department of Agriculture, and if I can start by introducing the staff that's here and the SMEs that will be called on later, should that be necessary. Starting with the gentleman on my left is Warren Takanaka. He's the acting ASO for the Services Office. Going to go to the Agriculture Development Division. I saw Matthew Loke, Administrator, Dr. Loke. And he brought with him
Happy New Year.
a new staff, Bun Hee Chung. He is the economist. Anyone else from ADD? Yes, it's Market Development Branch. We have Brendan Akamu. He's the Market Development Branch Manager, Business Development. Moving on to the, don't think we had anyone from Ag Loan here. Did you see anybody from Ag Loan? Okay, so we're moving on to the Ag Resource Management Division in charge of land and water, starting with Brian Cow, Administrator. Brian, did you have someone?
No.
with you? Nope. Then moving on to the Plant Industry Division, we have Jonathan Ho. He is the Plant Industry Division Plant Quarantine Manager. Carol Okada is currently the Administrative Executive 5, but she's helping us with Act 231. Okay, Greg Takishima, who is our key pesticides manager, he woke up sick this morning, so we're sorry to see him not here. Animal industry, we have Dr. Maeda, administrator, and anyone with you today? Oh yeah, Todd Lowe, manager Todd Lowe from the Aquaculture Livestock Services branch. Anyone else? Nope. So we have the Quality Assurance Division, which is our 7th division, and we have the administrator, Dr. Leo Obaldo. With him, he has his hemp specialist, Artemio, we call him June. And we also have Richard Cohen, who is the measurement standards. And I saw Keith here, Keith Utsuka from our commodities branch. Did I miss anyone? If I did, I got everybody. Okay.
Marketing? Oh, that was, yeah, okay.
Oh,
General.
Thank you, committees and committee members, chairs, vice chairs. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the governor's decision on his budget for fiscal 26 and 27. If I can begin with an update on the 10 million that was awarded in this fiscal year in Act 231 and the momentum that is building for those programs. Biosecurity is the focus of the department, as this was the top issue for the farmers and ranchers when they were surveyed. The biosecurity came up as the biggest concern they have. And we all know that it's an interagency effort. It takes all of us. And it does rely on every one of our divisions to help us with the effort to, kick some bug butt, as they say. So I'm going to start with just a quick overview. For the programs, there were about $7.8 million awarded. Of the 7.8, we have obligated, and by obligated, I mean that an RFP was issued or a contract was issued or some PO was done to obligate the funds. That's 72% of the funding, which was about $5.7 million. And of the 7.8 million, we have actually encumbered in the form of a contract or some sort of procurement, about 47%. So I'll just go through some of the highlights of these of what we've done. The two big ones are the CRB and the LFA. So for the CRB contract, that was awarded to a company called HTM. They're a local company. And what they did in their proposal that was selected for awarding is the Department of Agriculture is going to identify the trees that we have deemed to be dead or dying or no longer viable. And they will be cutting it down, disposing of it, and that's on the islands of Oahu and Kauai. On the island of Oahu, their contract says at least 150 trees. Now, 150 seems like a small number, but it's the 50 feet and higher tree. So that's the most expensive tree to cut down and dispose. So if there's trees that are in the more 30 to 40 foot range, which is the more common, it's going to be cheaper. So we anticipate a greater number than 150, but it's hard to estimate at this time. So that's on Oahu. On the island of Kauai, at least 70 trees will be cut, disposed of properly. And because right now the main problem for CRB, the dead coconut trees, the problems are on Oahu and Kauai, we included the county of Maui and Hawaii Island as more outreach. If they do identify any trees between now and the end of the contract, which is 1 year, they will be cutting down and removing and disposing of those trees as well. And so we've covered all the different counties with the CRB disposal contract. LFA. LFA was this contract was 1.1 million, I believe. For LFA, we're relying on our database that was provided to us of detections. It was collaboration with the ISCs and the Hawaii Ant Lab, as well as our own staff that have identified residential spaces that have either reported or have been detected to have LFA, as well as voluntary reports. And we've gone out there and identified and mapped them and said, okay, these houses have potential issues with LFA. The contractor for this is a local company called Terminex, and they have locations on all islands. So their contract that was awarded in their scope, they're going to treat at least 580 residential properties on the island of Oahu, treat at least 290 residential properties on the island of Hawaii. And right now, the counties of Maui and Kauai would be the same. They're going to treat residential properties within both counties as determined by our plant industry staff as they arise within the course of the scope of a year. So these two major projects, the contracts are ready to go. And so we should be starting service hopefully by the end of the month. If not, if there's a delay in the certification of the contracts, it'll be soon. We're ready to go. Okay, so
Here,
yes.
Can we ask questions on the item or later?
No, we should go through the table. And then you can tell us all your budget requests.
Okay.
And then if you have a question on that specific line, then yeah, people can ask, yeah.
I wanted to go through just the two most interest. We can certainly review each one later. That's okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up was that we have been working on ag crime. Ag crime was another big issue that was identified through the survey. And what we've done is we've purchased 1,000 no trespassing signs. And there has been a poster made by DLE, Department of Law Enforcement. We've shared the PDF with the ag committees of both House and Senate. And the reason we're starting with trespassing is in discussions with DLE, Directors Lowe and Deputy Director Radula, if we can stop the crime at the trespass level, we've done a lot. We can deter it at that level. We feel we can make an inroad into the whole ag crime issue. So that, let me talk a little bit about the Akamai arrival program.
You don't want to go into start, let's go into table 6.
We'll do.
We were in table 6.
No, she didn't, that was her opening remarks.
Proposed additions. Okay, ag, continue funding for Act 231. The governor saw fit, and with the support of the legislature, hopefully we can continue the $7.2 million that was awarded for the positions in the program, moving them from a 1 year to at least maybe A-funded, so that the people that do apply will have some security in the position.
So last year, the legislature passed a bill that had 20 million. So there's several lines related to biosecurity. Does that equal
Positions,
to the total 20 million?
Yes. Skip
This is just broken up.
right by a program,
Okay.
pesticides.
So the department was able to convince the governor that the 10 was a good start, but you still need the full 20?
No. Oh, 12 million in the positions.
Yeah.
We're not going, the 27 million that he approved was included other programs.
No, I thought there was the bill, right? The biosecurity
Yeah.
bill had 20 million. You vetoed half the amount. So now you're coming in to, and what I'm looking at all these different these different lines,
I think it's only 10.
how much of this is,
Okay,
Mhm.
ASO tells me the total of all the biosecurity asks is 12 million.
okay, so he didn't go back to the 20. Did you ask for the full 20 back?
Let me check. I don't think we
Okay,
did.
that's fine. Why don't we
Okay,
just?
I don't think
go
we
ahead?
did the outreach numbers. Okay,
I'm just
um,
trying to figure out
In his
what
budget-
because when the legislature passed the 20, the legislature had an idea of what it wanted to get funded. So I'm trying to reconcile of what the legislature's original intent of trying to fund the 20 versus what you're asking for now. What's the difference that,
From governor's budget, I see he has $12 million, 12.7.
no, that's true. We asked for 20, we
Yeah,
funded
broken down.
20 last year. He
Right.
vetoed 10. So they
You're-
didn't rebuild the 20 in their budget request.
no, some of the items that let me say that we're very happy with what we did get, based on our ask. But some of the things we didn't get was a $6.5 million ask for aquaculture projects.
No, I'm talking just the biosecurity bill.
Right,
Yeah,
that
that
was-
was,
1 to 4.
maybe not. So
Wait, where is that?
we had $1 million for a wildlife bovine tuberculosis vaccine study. We had $1 million for a meat processing capacity study,
Where
which
you
were
getting
not
from?
funded.
Because I'm looking at table 6.
Yeah.
Starting from number 1.
So number 1 was the 7 million, right? This year, 7.2 million.
The second.
Yeah, that's
Second
like
page.
quarantine.
Okay, so that was was that part of the bill?
Yes,
Okay. And then 3.3 million.
part of the bill.
Okay, the 163,000. That's from Act 231, right?
Yep.
But so what I'm suggesting is when we passed the bill, Act 231 had originally $20 million in it.
Okay, so what we did is the governor asked us to make the decisions of where to cut. The areas that we cut were pretty much on public outreach, community programs, media. And we maintained, if he gave us 3 million for CRB, for instance, we kept the majority of the money. We did cut it down. So the money the difference between the 20 and the 10 was not in the biosecurity section. It was mostly in the public outreach section.
Okay, but did you ask for anything that was cut in this current budget?
We did, but we know it was the bovine TB and it was the meat processing and, but I'm gonna say that we are very happy with what we got. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
but the
satisfied.
legislature wanted to make sure that the public awareness component, because that's where I think we're having a difficult time is, you gotta have people aware, you gotta let them know what to do, give people
Agreed.
instruction, who to call, what to look for. That part is missing. So
Well,
you can be doing all of this, but if the community at large isn't helping us, it's a big fight.
I agree. And that's why we used some of the funding from the CRB last year to do $25,000 projects for CRB outreach in the community levels and the neighborhood. The one that I can say that I just went to was the one in Kahuku, the tree project that Daniel Anthony did. He had a CRB workshop. And that was at the community level. It was very well
No,
attended.
yeah, that's fine, but that's different than being on TV all the time and being on the radio all the time, so that more people are aware, because with everything we're doing, I feel like we're still losing,
Okay.
Outreach, yeah.
I mean, we're still getting calls. I know Senator Fukunaga called yesterday saying now she thinks Papakolea, Makiki, all of these areas might have some little fire ant.
Point made. I used to be in marketing. I understand the power of outreach. We're doing an interagency outreach with Anthology. We're funding them but it's not TV. TV is too expensive.
So why would you hire a PR firm just to talk to other agencies?
It's an interagency health deal in R&S. We're doing we asked them to help us with the immediate. We're not going to do posters and print. We want them to help us to send the message to people where they get their news. So they're going to do streaming. They're going to do, blurbs on the
And
text.
how much is that?
I think we said we're going to do 10,000. Or was it? I'm sorry, I'm going to correct myself. 20,000.
Okay, why don't we just keep going?
Okay. Page 2. Okay, so the 3.3 million was part of Act 231, 163 was part of Act 231, 846 also 231 positions. We're asking them to move from a 1 year.
To base.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Then still with Act 231, we have the biosecurity program, compost reimbursement and green waste. We're asking for the same 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Economic development specialist position. This was not 231. No, and it is for 63. And this is for someone to help us manage our grants. The micro grant for food security is a handful. This year, the applications reduced from 7,000 applications to 2,000. But even that was difficult for the team to manage. And the supply chain for grants, as we know, once you award a grant, you have a contract to do, you have to certify it. And then in the ASO shop, fiscal has to do invoices, checks, closeout. So we're asking for this position to focus on the backside of grants for economic, and thank you to the Gov, and hopefully the legislature will continue to fund this one important position. The next one is the program specialist and funds for the farm to state and farm to food bank program. We have been trying our, moving people around to support the farm to food bank because we know how important it is. So many people rely on the food bank. We know that the number one thing that people come looking for is poi and taro. And in order to supplement that, the 500,000 in here would be to get programs to increase production of the foods that they want. They lack produce. They have a lot of value add. They have a lot of frozen, but they lack fresh produce and they lack poi. So the 500,000 that we're asking for program funds here is for not only a position, the 30 and 76,000 is for the position, but the 500,000 is for programmatic. And we hope that can survive through conference. Okay, then we're going to, just before this, we canceled out the 150. That was, we're not going to go for that. That was not funded.
Okay,
The motor vehicle replacement for,
that's the next two,
yeah,
3,
and then
4.
motor vehicle replacement.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We really need that. There are, some of our cars are over 10, 15, 17 years old. So thank you if you can maintain that for us. And then that is the extent of our ask.
Members, questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Going back to your biosecurity, I see you have a number of projects and staffing, but how are you coordinating as a whole biosecurity strategy? In terms of controlling when it comes in the ports or through airplanes or postal, and then controlling it once it's in. So it seems the two need to be coordinated. How is it aligned and working with, say, when you're coming in, working with the harbors and the airports, and also with DLE? I guess they're doing some enforcement. What are you doing in coordinating with all the agencies to protect us? Like biosecurity is everybody's business, you know?
Yes, it is. It is. I'm going to start with the Akamai Arrival program that we're rolling out. The momentum with the Akamai Arrival program is with the ag form that is currently by paper. And I'm going to defer to the Lieutenant Governor's presentation on Thursday, because just before her presentation, she will be having a meeting with the airlines and she'll have an updated report, but it's good. The airlines have stepped up, and the Akamai Arrival is, to your point, is the entry. And then we also have another electronic form that we're working on called HiPop. It's for animals. The Animal Industry Division is tasked with taking away a family member that arrives without the proper papers. If you come in with a dog or cat that you consider to be your family member and they don't have the proper papers, it's really, it's a tough decision to whether to stay, okay, and let your pets, stay with the Animal Industry Division until with proper documents can be retrieved so that we can ensure that the biosecurity for the state is, we don't have rabies that we're introducing. Public health and safety is preserved. So the Akamai Arrival HiPop portal is going to be an electronic portal that they can fill in beforehand, so they know what papers they have, if they have all the different rabies tests and blood tests that they need, because it's been very difficult for the staff to tell somebody upon arrival that they don't have that.
So where are those monies coming from?
We funded that.
We funded it. I think for instance, the ag form, so far we've expended $7,000 for the software.
From which
From
program
us.
ID? Yeah, which program ID?
Isaac Mehta for Animal Industry Division. I can only speak to the HiPop because that's a dog and cat in our rabies quarantine branch. That was funded through user fees, and we've actually already, the contractor is already engaged. They actually already built the platform, and it's being limited use by certain pet owners at this point so that we can get a good read on it. So the dog and cat side of things I can speak to, that's been taken care of.
Okay.
Senator, I'm going to call up Jonathan to answer where the 7,000 for the ag form came from.
So those are two different.
Good afternoon, chairs, members of the committee. Jonathan Ho, Plant Quarantine Branch Manager. So the branch has a Salesforce-based data collection system, and we have a maintenance contract with the vendor who developed it. So we utilized the existing contract to develop the online portal portion for the Akamai arrivals. And that's the $7,000 was out of the Pest Inspection Eradication Quarantine Fund, the SPO4 fund.
So has the department ever followed up on people who don't fill out the form? Because if it's the law, but where's the enforcement?
That is the biggest challenge with the quarantine or the form in of itself. The statute does allow for a family member, adult family member, to fill out for the entire family.
Yeah. So
And
but if the department doesn't start to make an example of people who don't do it, then no one's going to take it seriously. Yeah, but how do you enforce that? What's the enforcement plan?
One check.
on either form, the paper or the digital? What's the enforcement plan?
So there's a couple of things. So one of the issues is the penalty is criminal, and
So who's checking and who's saying,
So
because
this-
have we prosecuted anybody?
we have not, since the statute was changed from civil to criminal, I believe in 2010, a criminal prosecution has not occurred for an agriculture declaration form. Prior to that, we were issuing citations. Those are civil.
So we're not really getting accurate information, and then people are either not filling out the form because we don't take it serious, so they may not take it serious.
So with regards to the form, and I think to speak to the need for increased compliance. One of the biggest challenges is the ability to administratively search people, right? You know, like the inspectors need good cause, which is
I get that, but if you guys are having challenges, like members have said before, then you should let us know what statutorily needs to be changed so that you can actually do enforcement. Because we're not with you at the airport. We're not the one in charge. You guys have to implement. And so if you find that you have hurdles, you need to let us know what legislatively has to be changed so you can actually do the job. Because if we don't take biosecurity seriously, then this is what's happening. We got coconut rhinoceros beetle, little fire ant. I mean, the thing goes on and on and on. And it's just getting worse.
Hopefully the digital form, which you have to do it by check-in.
So with regards to the digital form, we're trying to make it as flexible as possible to give as many opportunities for people to fill it out instead of being on the plane.
Yeah, but that's not my concern. My concern is, where is the enforcement plan? Where is the compliance plan? Making it easier for people is fine, but who's going to enforce it?
So the biggest thing with regards to passenger baggage and to gaining additional compliance is essentially using detector dogs, because that overcomes the.
Are you asking
burden.
for that? Or
So-
do you have the money for that?
So one of the challenges is the facility.
Yeah, but still, that's fine. What's the plan then? I mean, got to be a little more proactive and compliance and detection. And I mean, we're depending on you. If not, we're just reacting to everything.
This is not the first year that we've heard this, and we will come back with a plan. We will get together with plant
Well, part
coordinating.
of the governor's concern in vetoing the 20 million was he didn't think you could spend it all. And maybe he wasn't convinced that you had a plan. So he vetoed. So if you actually can show that you can spend the full amount and the results that we're going to get from it, then at least you can help justify it.
Jonathan, I think what the senator and the committee is asking is that we come up with a plan, and dogs are expensive. Maintenance of dogs is very expensive. The trainers are expensive, the facility is expensive, but we will get you that number and how many we need. And you don't own the dogs, you rent them? Is that how it goes?
Okay, but you know what? You guys are supposed to come up with plans and implementation
We will come up with it.
strategies and with the budget that allows for it. That's the budget director or the governor to say, we can't afford it, or our job to say we can't afford it.
Okay.
I don't know why you would limit yourself in putting down what you think is needed when your job is to effectuate the statutes.
Back to the Senator Mawaraki's question, the biosecurity plan, besides the arrival portion, which by the way, it includes boats and private planes and military, we're going to identify pathways. Money was provided, I think it was $240,000 for the risk assessment. So we decided after some discussion that the original plan was to do training of the staff, take them down to Amazon, show them the facility and say, hey, this is where you need to look at. But it's so big, we decided to RFP it, and we're going to ask for a vendor to give us a report, not only for the entry ports like Amazon or Pacific Air Cargo, or private jets, FedEx, UPS, you know, the little holes that we have, but show us, this is where your vulnerability is. This is where your biggest risk is. Send your people here. Operationally, you know, back of the door, this is where you should be, or should you be at Plains? So we're going to use that money for the risk assessment for the ports. Yeah, so that's where we're starting. And then once
Oh,
they're,
and the vacancy, you know, we added positions and then we funded some positions with general fund. I mean, I put some of you in touch with Leeward Community College so that they could start doing a CTE pathway so that we can fund some of these positions. So when I had spoke to the governor's office when they were talking about vetoing, I mentioned the fact that no, we can fill these positions if we work with Leeward on a CTE pathway. And Leeward was willing to work with you guys in doing the classes and the training at your facilities. But you still are missing a compliance component, an enforcement component. That part, if not, no, who's gonna take it serious?
understood.
Follow up on electronic. We just came back and, is it in instituted now? Electronic?
No.
Private?
It's,
Last year they said you were gonna start with a couple of them.
that's been expanded, and on, when the LG, Lieutenant Governor Luke comes on Thursday, she'll have met with all the airlines, and I believe,
We have meetings on Thursday.
yeah, you're meeting with her.
We don't have info briefings this Thursday. Okay, anyway.
Anyway, I've been advised that the many airlines are going to be participating instead of just the one or two. I think the Alaska Hawaiian merge, while a wonderful thing, now limited to one airline, now it's going to be more than just the one. They've expanded it.
So when is this gonna?
I don't want to jinx it, but by the end of the fiscal,
So by
with June.
July 1st, by July 1st.
Oh, that's me talking, but it's really the
Counts.
Who's going to read and translate what's on the computer and then follow through? Because that's the whole situation with the paper. Somebody picks it up, but nobody, they pick it up and you never hear from them. You know, you write, I have a snake. Nobody calls you up, you know?
yeah.
Nobody calls you up. You put it in the thing and the bin goes and.
Yeah.
So you have a plan and the manpower and everything in place. So when June comes around, you guys have the personnel that's going to accept all the digital computer and read it and follow through?
I'm going to say yes, because you don't need as many personnel. Right now, we have people that go to every plane and pick up the papers.
No.
Out on the wall.
Yeah.
On Maui. Maui primarily.
Yeah, because it goes through the baggage claim, it comes in
Exactly.
an envelope and then somebody,
Exactly.
the airline person gives it to somebody.
Then I should defer to the Lieutenant Governor's briefing on.
But not
Thursday.
every single airline is going to be doing it. So you're still going to have some people having to get the forms.
Yeah, so. Sorry, so I'm sorry. So one of the things specifically with the digital form is each of the airlines have their own proprietary systems, and trying to create something that can work for all of them has been a challenge.
Okay, but you know what? We fund the airport, right? I mean, it comes through our budget. DOT they have the airports committee. I mean, some of that should be to some extent an exchange. You want us to make the improvements at the airport, all the aesthetics, then you also have to help us with protecting Hawaii. And so it can't just be this silo where Department of Ag is on the side and the airlines don't have to do anything. We got to figure this out, leveraging other branches.
I think biosecurity and interagency should come in the same sentence. Biosecurity and interagency collaboration. It's going to be. I just need to defer. I misspoke earlier, about the meeting. So I believe the Lieutenant Governor's briefing will be.
So
much
we're
more
still slated
comprehensive.
for June, even though each airline have their own system. I don't know how you're going to coordinate on.
So it's not necessarily the system. I think it's the difference is going to be the way that they deliver the information. Get it to us. So the way that it's submitted is standardized. But how they're gonna be rolling it out, when they're gonna be rolling it out, we're gonna be working with each of the airlines. And again, in a pilot standpoint, they kind of know their system best. And if one airline has a better way of doing it than another, you can potentially utilize that when we get into like a more standardized system in terms of, I think, direct implementation as opposed to just collection. We're trying to open up collection, try to get as much people to do as possible initially, because it's a small number, and you want to also manage.
Have you worked with Department of Transportation? Are you working with them? Because there is an airlines association so that
Airlines
you can
Committee for what,
actually
yes.
look at what can you do systemically instead of airline by airline.
You know, I think going back to this, there's gonna have to be legislation, which I know some of us are working on for biosecurity, because it needs to be ramped up. This side had questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairs. So assuming you do get the electronic form, I'm assuming that means the paper forms go away. We don't have to no one has to fill those out anymore.
I'm going to defer to the Lieutenant Governor, but that's my understanding. is we
Okay,
will
so
not have
but
that.
if everybody's using some sort of an electronic filing before they get on the plane, does that mean that if they haven't filed the form that they don't get on the plane? You still get on the plane even if you haven't filed it.
You'll have the opportunity to file on board.
Okay.
But they don't let you off the plane if you don't. Well. That's where.
So then I agree.
It's the airline's responsibility
Then
to
I-
capture that information.
Then I agree.
So are you finding the airline? Are you guys,
Find them.
if it's their responsibility, then why aren't you guys getting on the airline saying, hey,
So I think at this point, I agree with Chair Dela Cruz that if there's no back end enforcement, and at least in my experience, there isn't. I mean, I think I've literally gotten off planes and didn't pass the thing in because they never came around to collect it. So I I very rarely check bags, so I never go downstairs. And so that you just walk out of there and there's nothing to stop you from doing it. So that does seem like a major problem in terms of, well, one thing I've learned is being chair of the Judiciary Committee for a long time, it's not the penalty that matters, it's whether you think you're going to get caught. And nobody thinks they're going to get caught in this situation.
So,
Thanks, Jared.
but on that note, you said it was civil before.
Used to be,
and
yeah.
Used to be. So is that more effective than having it as a criminal penalty because you haven't been able to have any charges on the criminal side, right?
2010.
I know that people, we were citing people. I mean, whether it was more effective or not, I don't have any, I guess, what factual evidence to say one way or another.
Who determined that it was going to become criminal instead of civil? Was that a legislative thing or the department asked?
We had to do it. We had to do it. I'm sure. I don't remember.
No, I
the
know.
bill,
I'm just not sure
yeah.
who asked.
Yeah.
Or where the idea originated. Was it you guys?
I honestly,
Oh, it was
personally, I
legislative?
don't know.
Oh, okay.
It was quite a while ago, right? 2010 or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, only Carol was here back then.
It was after the rift, so I don't know. So I know that at that time that that was right after the economic downturn, and the legislature did increase the permitting fees and some of the institute fees for inspections, and some of the fines that were tied to the criminal penalties were increased. So I'm not sure if that was, I think, part of it, as it like partially deterrence. And
Yeah.
but
there has to be a lot of restructuring because I know when Department of Ag and I guess there was a group of us, we went to not Matt, well, was it Young Brothers? Was it Young Brothers? And I asked a question there. They have a safety officer. So I asked, do you have a biosecurity officer? And they said no. So I'm not sure why the ports of entry, airlines, harbors, we don't have biosecurity officers at those companies so that there is somebody to be in charge and make sure that there's compliance, at least internally, and then they can work with our agencies. But if we don't make it a priority, they're not making it a priority. I mean, these are things that we should require.
So, I wanna go back to the biosecurity. Unlike, I try to follow the law and fill out my paperwork, even though I'm not on judiciary, but.
It's a good thing you try at least.
But, you know, the biosecurity, and I just don't say this, we always wait to fire ants get out of control, cookie frogs get out of control. Where are we besides what you like call educating about avian influenza and the voluntary program of you can volunteer whether or not to move a bird or not move a bird? And how do you prevent that breakout after we just saw the first case of human death, regardless of underlying conditions in the mainland?
I will call on Dr. Maeda if there's a further question regarding where we are on H5N1. Nationally, it's a bigger problem than it is right now for Hawaii. The voluntary 90-day stop movement has been effective in that I got an email from someone who was planning a trip in June, and she has a household pet that she wants to transport from island to island. And so I'm just using that as an example of awareness, that people are aware that there is a voluntary stop movement. I told her that we would regroup in March. The 90 days ends March 13th, and cross your fingers that nothing outbreak or nothing, happens. That we have to
That's the part is, I think that's what we're talking about. Why do we cross our fingers and wait?
Yeah.
When you have a situation here, why not isolate the situation here in Honolulu so that you know more the spread of that, and then you come back to us for more money to now clean up the mess that you could have done in the beginning?
Well, again, I'm going to go with the interagency biosecurity. The migrating birds are, they're everywhere. We don't know where they touch down. They could be in every forest or every island.
All the more reason why, since you have the case here, I would expect as the director, that would be a priority when you come in for the type of money that you guys are coming in. It's kind of like when I come in at the airport, and I agree fully with you about the dogs. What I don't agree is when the dogs smelling my food in my bag. Because I'm not pretty sure when dogs nose sniffing my food, that if the dog ain't trained properly, I would assume that somebody going to reimburse me for that food because I don't like eat the food on the plane. I'm a bit lucky that's not on the questionnaire. But how do you guys address biosecurity? We've been through this over and over, coconut rhinoceros beetle, and now we're looking for all this funding. We're knowing people to fill the vacancies to address that. And my understanding is you got 2 more vacancies in your department.
So regarding the H5N1, we've detected it in the water. We've detected it in a.
We know where you detected it. I want to know what is the plan on prevention now and on mandatory, of which you have people that are trying to sustain themselves as we double food production. We have all these egg layers that are now concerned. If that reaches them, who handles if they got to kill all those chickens that laying eggs on islands that have contracted with some of these stores?
Maybe I will call up Dr. Maeda. He has a response regarding the egg layers. They've been out there and they really have a comprehensive program.
My only question, before you even answer that, will you take on the burden of reimbursing if they got to kill out their entire flock of egg layers?
I'd have to check with the nationals, see how they're handling the reimbursement program, but I will take on the responsibility of checking with USDA, APHIS or.
I would rather you figure it out yourself, because the last time you and I went to DC, you had a hard time even on the renewal of the permits of the bovine tuberculosis, that you failed to put some of the wild species that should have been tested upon bovine tuberculosis.
Okay. May I call on Dr. Maeda?
I would like to hear what he has to say.
Isaac Maeda, Administrator, Animal Industry Division. One of the things that you have to realize is that stopping the movement of birds, if they're not coming from an infected facility, since you have it already in the wild, is not going to be effective. That's why throughout the continental US, where they've had avian influenza for many years, since 2015 and before, what you do is kind of what we did with this instance where we detected it in that backyard flock, is you go in and you have to control it at that point. Now, because we've already found that even before it got into that that backyard flock. The Wildlife Services had tested a duck from North Shore. This was before everything, but we didn't get the results back until after we had already started our, process at this backyard flock. But that actually was a November 1st sample that was positive already. So it was already in the wildlife. That's probably how it got into the flock that the particular person had, because there was intermixing of wild and, basically the domestic fowl.
So Dr. Mehta, that's my point. You guys know the intermixing is here.
Yep.
Why allow on transport to take place within the neighbor islands to put them at risk?
Because the transporting of animals that are not sick, and the only way you're gonna guarantee they're not sick is you're gonna have to institute animal certificates of veterinary inspection
So
or
why not
health
stop it till you guys
certificates.
get a better handle on the situation as a mandatory versus a voluntary? Today, we might say, okay, I feel good jumping on this plane. I reach to the other side and I'm sick and I cough on everybody and infect everybody else.
The only way that, we would actually be okay with something like that is there's some kind of exemption for agriculture, because right now you have hatcheries and you have brooders that move chicks to different islands. Yeah, we're not talking game birds. We're not talking about those kinds of
No, I
things.
understand that. That's
Yeah.
what brought up the egg layers.
Yeah.
Like, I get on an
So that's
individual that's
legitimate.
2,000 egg layers right now.
Yeah.
And literally is sustaining over 50% of the egg population on Molokai.
Yeah. So it's
She's
important.
not in favor of this voluntary at all.
I mean, it's, the other thing that I don't want people to get the misunderstanding of is the false security that you only got it on Oahu. It is not anyplace else. Because it's in the wildlife, because the wildlife migrate from Alaska, California, they have ducks and what have you that fly over. We got seabirds that go back and forth. It's likely that's how it got introduced. But do we have a real good understanding of how many of these animals are infected? No, we don't. We only got that one sample.
So basically, we just go into, if we get infected, then we come back and we say, oh, by the way, now we got infection on the other islands. They're flocks. We have to put them all down. Is that what?
I don't
Is that the
see,
plan?
I don't see a way that you can say that the other islands do not have avian influenza. We haven't detected it yet, but then again, there aren't any sampling going on. They
Well,
had the
that's what I mean.
H5 detection in Hilo, right? So the biosecurity that the commercial flocks and backyard people do is really important, because it's in the wildlife. They have to stop that commingling of wildlife and the commercial flock, and people, all of that has to be done.
Wait,
But
do we
trying
have
to
a surveillance strategy though?
surveillance?
Yeah.
We trying to do what we do now is that we have a line where people call, and if it's something that looks like we have to investigate, then we do sampling. Yeah, we're doing surveillance sampling.
Okay, because when we went to New Zealand,
Yeah.
they have a very strong and robust surveillance program. And we have different FFA classes or clubs. We got ag schools. We got all kinds. Why aren't we incorporating them to help us as even volunteers to help do surveillance on every island?
We would like to get some other agencies actually involved in this, especially with wildlife, because, we're agriculture and we do domestic.
That's
and
what I'm talking
poultry,
about, FFA.
Right. But
Making
we
sure they
need
have
to-
a biosecurity in their curriculum. Like incorporate them as part of the
Sure.
solution.
Sure, we can do that, but we need to get really a handle on what's happening out there in the wildlife, right? Because you already saw, we got one in Kahuku. Do we have any more on the island?
No, but like you said, how many people are gonna go through the forest and go figure this out? No. But if we can at least get what the different farms, where people can know what to look for, they can report it
The farms,
proactively,
yeah.
in addition to what you're talking about.
No, the farms are doing that. We have outreach to the farms. There's some farms, there's 2 of them on the island that are actually what's called Natural Poultry Improvement Program. And so they actually routinely do testing, even though they don't see anything in their flock.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of stuff going on too.
But
right?
even in the case of little fire ants or coconut rhinoceros beetle, we don't necessarily have a proactive surveillance plan. And maybe Carol can explain it to you. Oh, he knows. They put a boundary around a certain area once something is detected, and the whole community almost looks like goes out, they look at different signs, they report it back, and then they can figure out, okay, is it in this area or not? And if it's not, then they let the farms go back to normal operating. If it is, then they try to contain it. But we're not being a lot more proactive the way we should be.
We do surveillance for other types of viruses too, like we do.
No, and I'm not just
Bucket
talking that. I'm
swine.
talking about
Yeah.
some like coconut rhinoceros
Yeah.
beetle, little fire ant, which is maybe not your Kuleana, but
Yeah.
we still need a surveillance program.
Right now, we're on the public properties that we detect CRB. We have access to this tape. Let's say it's a park or a beach, and we know that that has been treated systemically. And of course, if it's treated systemically, you don't want to be eating the coconuts for about a year because it could affect the coconut. The person eating it could be allergic. So we've been giving out tape, this yellow tape that says "Do not eat." We've given out quite a few. We've
No, but
distributed.
that goes back to what we talked about earlier. You know what? The general public, they don't know that. That's why you got to go back to the public awareness campaign.
What's on? Well, it does say "Do not eat," and there's a date and time. So that's a proactive effort.
Lots of
That's
stuff
on
say,
public
do not
property.
trespass.
Oh, we have no trespass signs. We have.
We tell people you got to fill out the
Yes.
form for the ag form. Do they do it? No.
I have a question different related on your table 15 for your CIP. So for your animal quarantine facility, you have 6 million. That's for planning and design. So that's going to be DOA's responsibility rather than DCR's.
Is that item 3, the priority 3, the 6 million?
Yes, 6 million.
That's actually for tar removal that was detected quite some time ago. And before, it got funded this year. Thank you very much for adding it to the budget. But it's this tar that's been seeping up from the ground. We just don't know what.
Right, so it has nothing to do with planning design for relocation.
It has nothing to do with, but you make a very good point, Senator, that we realize we need to start labeling these projects for the Halava jail, that maybe it starts off with jail, because it's getting confused that the first, we have several projects at the Halava animal industry that have nothing to do with the jail, but it seems to be overlooked because it's an expense that maybe is not a popular one. Really, though, it's not for the jail. So we're coming up with a system where we'll say jail, and then the other one would be Halava, because this one is tar removal.
Thank you for the clarification.
So we had the committee, other committees, Ways and Means and Public Safety had a similar briefing this afternoon, and we talked a lot about fireworks. It would appear that you and the people who are trying to catch the illegal fireworks have a similar kind of problem, in that you're trying to keep something from coming into the state. Have you talked to them? Have you talked to the Department of Law Enforcement about how you might be able to coordinate efforts?
Actually, yes, the DLE has taken the lead on ag crime. They actually have a pilot program where they're
On ag crime or biosecurity?
well, ag crime, we're considering it as biosecurity, because part of the incoming, the trespass spreads diseases. They're actually going up there for hunting. A lot of the trespasses for it's all kind of interagency, intermingle. Trespasses a lot of times for stealing of fruit.
But in terms of security at the ports and airports, that's the part I was interested
Okay,
in.
all right. Right now, the DLE is not doing biosecurity at the ports. They're handling biosecurity outside of the ports. For us, we don't, we look for the same thing, but we have a kind of a sort of advantage because the things that we look for come in on a manifest. Yes, we just found another possum on Hilo. So the creatures that come in are not like fireworks. They're like they move around, they scurry.
So the question I really had was, so they're going to be scanning. I mean, it seems to me like there's a possible synergy with the types of scanners they're talking about buying, which are quite expensive, and looking for stuff that they're interested in, but also possibly looking for stuff that you're interested in, or the dog. I guess you can cross-train dogs too to sniff different things. It just feels like you're doing sort of the same kind of thing, and I hate to just buy everything twice.
Good idea.
Yeah, so I guess one of the differences is that as Chair Hurd said, a lot of the inspections are based off of specific, basically classes of commodities that require inspection. And we work with the transportation companies to provide those things to us for inspection prior to release. And with regards to, I guess, like contraband generally, because the goods that we're looking at aren't contraband, right? So during the course of the inspection, because we have administrative search authority, basically we can open with good cause. Whereas, you know, DLE cannot do that, right? They need warrants to do that type of stuff. And, you know, obviously the use of a machine can provide that type of ability to gain a warrant. But during the course of the inspection, staff have found contraband drugs and things like that. And obviously we do refer them to their appropriate authorities. And I think from the standpoint of synergy, moving forward with regards to like DLE or I guess other agencies who don't necessarily do agricultural goods, collaboration is something we do. Like we currently work with customs and USDA. We do joint operations for federal stuff where we have no authority. And they do stuff with us for domestic stuff in which they have no authority. So from the department standpoint, working with other regulatory agencies to find ways to like, you know, bridge those gaps so that there isn't a duplication of effort. You know, like it's a call, hey, we've discovered a tree or what an insect, and then, you know, we can respond and utilize our authority. And likewise, DLE, we found fireworks. Leave it open, they can do what they need to do. I don't think there's an expectation to duplicate limited resources when you can do one scan and essentially find a lot of different things for various agencies.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that at the previous one. And they just got to figure out how much it's going to cost and what would the scanner actually cost us. They don't know what it is yet, but they're willing. Sounds like they're willing to help, but you need the technology, you need the equipment, and so they have to start doing some cost estimates for some of that, and then you're going to need staff to manage it.
Customs and Border Protection does utilize some types of mobile scanners for things. My understanding is the scanning process is very timely from the standpoint of trying to manage volume against the actual scan. So I think I think they're very good for like spot checking to some extent. You know, with
yeah, well, let us see what they come up with.
Yes.
But I think DLE needs reasonable suspicion too. It's not the border where you can just open everything, right?
No, that's why you need the scanner.
So once you have reasonable suspicion, then you can scan it, but then why not look for both at that point? Yeah, okay.
Out of the pesticide take back program you guys initiated. So I had a question that when you guys took back the pesticides, and I brought that up with you folks, that why wasn't the people managing the pesticide take back giving out amounts of consumption on take back within paperwork form off of your letterhead to say, I just received from so-and-so's farm or ranch 25 gallons of restricted use, so that they can balance out their books when they come in for inspection by your restricted use pesticide branch.
Have to for that. Greg, as I said, he woke up sick this morning, so he's the manager of the pesticide branch.
Yeah, but I asked you this 3 months ago, and you said you were gonna follow up with that. So I've had the same requests by these farmers that took in and other people that they inherited on farm and they gave back their restricted use pesticide. What they're wanting is to make sure the inventory matches when they drop off the restricted use, as not to have sold it or dumped it in on river. So what they're wanting is that paper that said that farm or that individual
Turned in.
dropped off 2.5 gallons of RUPs and that your division signs off on it. When is that gonna be delivered to those individuals?
I'll have, again, I'm sorry, I don't recall.
It was right in
understanding
my
the
office
question,
with
maybe.
your pesticide branch.
Okay, sounds like an info briefing for the Committee on Ag and Environment.
I will, Senator, I'm sorry, I'll follow up. In fact, I think they do walk away with a record of what they dropped off.
Absolutely nothing.
They don't, okay, sorry. See, Greg, see what happens when you don't show up?
Okay, any other questions?
I'm gonna change subjects. What's happening with Act 90, the transfer of lands from DLNR to ag or ag? And what's the status of it?
Brian is here. Did you bring any notes on Act 90? Okay, Act 90 is doing well. We're working very well together with DLNR.
So
But
where are we? What's
where are we?
Frank Cobb, Ag Research Management Administrator. Let's see, since January 1st, 2023, we've transferred 22 parcels totaling 5,500 acres from DLNR. We are still working with DLNR. Well, you know what, the number might have gone up a little bit. I don't know if I was able to check.
So how many parcels are left to transfer?
In the 80s, low 80s.
But you only did 20 something?
22 as.
So we got 80 more to do.
Approximately, yeah.
And how long does that take?
That's all part of that. It's that number, yeah.
And how long is that gonna take?
Unfortunately, we are still working with DLNR on trying to decide how.
So
to
never
carve it
gonna
up.
happen.
Sorry, sir. We
You know,
want to make it happen.
What's awkward though, the ownership doesn't transfer to you, just the management.
Yeah, the ownership has always stayed with the land division.
Okay. That's where I'm No, but don't you still need land board approval at some
No,
point?
no, we don't. Once the fee, the title fee of the parcel does remain state of Hawaii, which is ultimately controlled by the land division. So if there were to be any deed transactions on the land, that would have to go and be done through land division, the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, so let's say a farmer wanted to, help build processing. Would that have to go land board or just you?
Just us, as long as it's within our rules or statutes and rules, the Department of Agriculture, the Board of Agriculture would be able to approve them.
So it's only.
So they have no say once they get transferred.
Correct. As long as the purpose for which the ask is within the scope of the original executive order.
And then when the lease is up, then what?
It stays with us. As long and to be relet under the conditions of the program.
Okay.
And we don't have to go back to BLNR.
I'm just not sure why the title's not just transferred to ADC.
That I can't tell you.
Because in that way, it's just ag. And then you could still manage it. I mean, it's the same arrangement that you have with DLNR.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway. Okay, any other questions? Okay, go ahead. Last
Okay,
question.
one last question, since you're there. What is the status of the $2 million? This is really actually Senator Coit's, but the Molokai irrigation system, we gave you 2 million last time, and now you're asking for another 5 million? 2.7 and 2.7 million for fiscal year 26, 27. What's the status of that? Is that going to be completed, or where are you?
I think I left it on my phone at the chair, but I believe, well, we have not.
And
we don't intend on lapsing any of the appropriated funds that have been granted to us for CI, which includes the previous Molokai funds as well.
So what did you spend on the 2 million?
If I recall correctly, it was to do things like joint coupling repairs for some blowouts that had happened along the access road, and a few other smaller things at the base yard, I believe it was. But yeah, these things, these pipes are huge. They're like, what, 40 something, 70 something inches. They're really, really big. So they're, you know, just changing one coupling is not a simple task.
And so what is a 2.7?
I believe
million
it's,
in a
we were only
request?
able to do some of them. We had to cut scope back when we put out the CIP project because we didn't have enough money to.
But what is
complete
it
all of them.
buying us?
I'm sorry?
What is it buying us? What are you doing with the 2.7?
If I recall correctly, it is to complete the replacement of all of these joint couplings within the pipeline for from the reservoir. I don't recall if there are a few base yard improvements. There may be also something else for data management.
So what is the total project that you want to do and what is the total cost? And what will it give us?
So the best of my knowledge, this is going to complete what this ask is for. It's about, I believe, right around $5 million. Now, these are, I don't mean to go on about this, but you know, the systems do age, so it will not be the last ask for MIS or any of our other irrigation systems. Like any kind of utility, they do require maintenance and replacement and modernization over time.
A quick follow-up. So based on that, you know, I know that you guys past meetings on your agenda has been on water rate increase right across the board. But then I think your last 3 board meetings were canceled because the response was you guys had nothing to discuss. So I want to know, why didn't you try to figure out, without doing a water rate increase, prioritizing one request on budget for the offset of the water rate increase to fund operations?
No, I think she's
I'm
asking.
talking about the water rate increases, since we're talking about the reservoir system. Why is it that you haven't requested as a priority to put in for operational? Isn't that why you're asking to do a water rate increase right across the board on the farmers?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so we actually, it is something that we have been discussing for the past couple of years. One of the asks that we had put in, I believe it was last year, was to remove some of the positions on the revolving fund, which is the fund that collects the revenue for the delivery fees, to move some of those positions over into the general fund. And what that would do is obviously is create some space for us to allow the purchase of new vehicles, slope mowers, and equipment such as possibly even like a bobcat that would clear the tunnel when it rains hard, things like that.
No, but you're doing one water rate increase statewide, right?
Right.
Right across the board. So if you looked at that and you guys were trying to come out with that amount, right, to handle your operational costs. Why wasn't the operational cost that you guys were going to inflict on the water users statewide on water rate increase put in as a priority request?
I'm not sure I'm addressing the question, but
The water rate increase, you guys are asking, what was your reasoning why you guys wanted a water rate increase?
to account for the increase in costs for us to operate and maintain the statewide systems.
Which would total what?
I believe right now, we're looking at somewhere around the neighborhood of, if my memory recall, it's around 2 million.
So why would that not be on request of your guys' ask in your budget versus putting the burden on farmers that are already struggling? On water rate increase.
I think it is, right?
So at this point, you're not asking for that water rate increase.
It's been tabled for now.
It's been tabled.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you. Adjourn.